Hello, this is Susana from Gorliz in the Basque Country, north of Spain, just about half an hour from Bilbao. Welcome to the Tea and Trolls podcast with Gary and Eddie. Everyone have a fantastic run. Bye!
Welcome and thanks for joining us for episode 96 of the Tea and Trails podcast, and thanks for the intro to Red Thunderbird. Not just the UK's number one trail running podcast, but coming in your EU ears too. And firstly, big thank you to all our patrons. For the price of a cuppa, you can keep the mics on and the lights hot. And many thanks to our sensational partners too. Check them out over on Patreon. They not only support the podcast, but also provide discount codes. So it's almost like a little gift from them to you to say thank you for being awesome. Join any Patreon tier and pay annually and you will receive 10% off your subscription. Also, pop over to Summit Crazy if you would like to buy some awesome Tea and Trails merch.
Thank you to our show sponsors, Precision Fuel and Hydration, X-Miles, Phoenix Light UK, Beta Run and Protein Rebel. We use their products. I have literally just poured Protein Rebel protein powder into my mouth before we started recording. And I also, I'm very proud of this, Gary, 3 by 90 grams carb gels every day on the Pennine Way. Yes. Slipped down a treat. I glugged a whole one standing at Sycamore Gap.
They were big days. How was your nutrition fatigue?
I mixed it up. We'll talk about it a bit later, but I mixed it up. I didn't get any. The only thing I did do was become a toddler and ate a family pack of Haribo on day 2. And let's just say there wasn't much sleeping. I was wild. Anyway, we use all their products every week to help us train, hydrate and recover.
Well, not only me, George has been helping himself to my Protein Rebel protein shakes. Sad
Getting
times.
cut. What do the boys call it? Winter arc. They go. We're doing the winter arc, Mum.
I'm going to have to Google that.
You got to Google it. Everyone's going to come at us now. My 12 and 14-year-old are not doing the winter arc.
Patrons, you can get 15% off over at Precision Fuel and Hydration. And if you're not a patron but would like to try Precision Fuel and Hydration,
shame on you.
New customers get 15% off their first order with the code T24, which is super simple in all caps, T24. And if you'd like to try Protein Rebel, then use the code T15 for 15% off your first order.
Thanks to Lissa and Patreon Blakey for sharing his awesome Precision Fuel and Hydration customer service experience. We hear this a lot. Just a shout out to Precision Fuel and Hydration's customer service. Caps lock, brilliant. I ordered a load of their stuff late Thursday evening with my 15% off. Thumbs up emoji. Then lots of emails saying where the order was, and bingo, Saturday afternoon it all arrived. Hats off, guys. Thanks. Double thumbs up emoji.
Can't argue with that. Oh my goodness me, was it Lakeland 100? I can't remember what it was, but one risk could have been 13 Valleys. I had to lean on their customer service. I think it was like an outage, a Royal Mail outage. Anyway, my parcel was kicking around in some depot somewhere. And luckily it turned up, but they were ready, standing, waiting to dispatch another order. And this was not because they support the Tea and Trails podcast. I was just a regular Joe. Yeah, 5
I'm just a regular guy like all you guys. I'm just a regular everyday guy.
Links to all our sponsors and Patreon can be found in the show notes and over at teaandtrails.com.
We're slightly podcast fatigue, haven't we? Because we've done a massive interview, and I wonder if this could be a mistake, because I've spent too much time with you already today, and so I just kind of want to poke you.
Oh my goodness, this is not going to go.
I feel a bit like I'm in a maths lesson on hour 2, and I'm like, I'm going to be naughty.
Scared, listeners. Who wants to go first? Well, you're going to have a double whammy, actually.
You guys are going to get to hear my voice a lot. So
me.
This podcast. So let's just say I had, oh my gosh, I tell you what, here comes the wine. Leaving your family and your job for 3 days was a military operation.
There's a price to pay.
That price was heavy, and it was driving down the M6 at 3 a.m. in the morning thinking, what am I doing? The beginning bit of my week was like a military operation. I had to-do lists. I had to hands on my heart, Gary, maybe twice a year, and it's only for races I put into training peaks for my clients, my athletes. I will not be in contact for 3 days. I don't ever take a holiday. I'd never, ever not check plans. Probably Christmas Day.
For self-employed people, that's massive.
It's massive. So very early, but I couldn't take my laptop and I didn't want to take my laptop. I did feel like, come on, Eddie, if you can't take 3 days off, what the hell? But it's just the catch up afterwards was more, I know everybody will fine without me for 3 days. I know you guys will all be fine, but it's more the catch up than deep diving into how everybody's doing. But that's all fine. It's all fine, Eddie. I just am such a control freak. So I had a lot to organise before. I did a little bit of jogging because my dogs are athletes and a walk for them is basically needs to be about 5 hours long, but I can do the same for an hour. I did one session because I thought, let's keep the juices flowing, and I left the dog behind because I just took the fast dog. I did Sophie's choice. So I done one session, but not very many miles. I'd done my strength, so I was ready to go, but it was a lot to fit in to go, and I constantly was going, shall I go? Obviously I was going to go, but it was just this sort of like big deal for Eddie. I'd not left the kids since Northern Traverse in April.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so I am the constant caregiver and the constant thing there. But also it's good for them. It's good for them to realise that the life actually doesn't work without mum there. So they appreciate me a bit more when they forget the swim towel, the rugby shorts and everything else. But they do have some sensational meals with Dad, which involves the air fryer and ketchup.
I'm coming round. Poor ketchup. I mixed ketchup and gravy the other day. Is that wrong?
Oh my God, the thought of that. I can't even imagine. No. Yes, it's wrong. So it was fine. It was a build-up week. It was nothing like Hannah, who did 50 miles on the trip. So I thought, I'll probably do about 30 miles before this weekend. It will still be then a mega week of miles. But Hannah obviously read my mind and was like, yeah, whatever. I'm going to run 50 miles on the treadmill on Tuesday. Before we go, she totally top trumped me. So I had nothing to complain about. But anyway, we're going to talk more about my little adventure over on the Pennine Way, which became a social media sensation. I know
couldn't escape it.
Gareth is going. I'm not really even sure why, but let's just say I was there for it. I don't mind.
I wasn't allowed. No penises allowed. Then I did see Mr. Damien all in the car park.
Oh, he couldn't get enough of it. He kept
triggered me.
We had to ask him to leave in the end and go, buddy, look, you're going to just have to. You must be. Anyway, more later. What about you? You're upbeat. You're fresh. You're washed.
I'm up in the bed. I'm up in the bed,
Eddie. Yeah.
Oh, let's bring it down. Let's slow it down. Another easy week. But yeah, 100% more running. But I did manage. I mentioned I wanted to do 2, hopefully 3, but I would take 2 non-negotiable strength sessions, 1 at home and 1 at the gym. And because I was so super scared after the previous week, smashing my legs up big time, I didn't want to go into the lakes run on Friday with DOMs because, my goodness me, I can't remember how long it was, but when I went to the gym last time, it must be about 4 days before I fully felt I'd got over it. So that meant everything had to be crammed into Saturday and Sunday, which wasn't too bad because the home gym isn't so, intensive.
When you say your home gym, you follow a guy on YouTube, don't you, while you're lying on a rug?
Fitness Blender. Like millions of subscribers. He's legit.
Yeah, but aren't you just like doing like a few sit-ups and then...
You need to YouTube Brutal Abs workouts. You'll see exactly.
I'm going to do Brutal Abs workout at the same time as talking to you.
Episode 97. Brutal Abs workout. But then I went to the gym on Sunday. So I wasn't carrying any DOMs into a Friday session. I really enjoyed it. I think it was just that first, it's like when you go back to the trails for the first time after a long time, the DOMs are real. And I think that's what it was with the gym because, spoiler, I've been there again and the DOMs aren't so bad. Apart from my pecs, working on my pecs, they're a bit achy. Today,
he just grabbed his breasts, anybody listening to this, smacked him down, smacked down the pecs.
Licking his lips. Another awesome day on the trails with Robbo. And this is what I love about knowledge is power. We had no plan because you poo-pooed our Tea Trails Ultra recce, poured scorn on it. Rob was like, how we thought we were going to do this Ultra. I'm like,
Thought it was something we're doing together, but you know, if
I
you
run
want to
it past Lisa. I run it past Lisa. Have I got it wrong? And I thought, is it just and Lisa's like, no, Eddie's right. So we thought, okay, we'll do a bit of 13 Valleys. Then we'll get up to Honest Slate Mile. We'll jump on the Bob Graham round route. Then we run back to Keswick. I think having that familiarity with the trails, you can join the dots. We knew roughly, I can't remember how far it was, but it wasn't going to be like, oh, we'll do this, do that. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, we're 30 mile in and we're still 10 miles from the car. Just having that little bit of familiarity with the trails. And it was really lovely just to be on, get back on leg 5 of the Bob Graham round. And when we climbed up Dale, anyone who knows who's done anything from, say, Honeston to Dale Head, it's like a mile, but it's like pretty much a vertical mile up to the summit of Dale Head. And we broke through the clouds. It was absolutely spectacular. It's pretty cloudy. It was nice weather for a November day. It was lovely. But when we got to the top of Dale Head, we just punctured through the clouds. And we had a Brocken spectra where I think you basically come between yourself, the clouds, and the sun. So we had this little halo and our shadows on the clouds. It was just, for that 5 minutes, like literally I'm guilty. I'm scrambling with my phone. I'm saying to Robbo, oh, do this, do that. And I pretty much missed it all while Robbo, he enjoyed the moment and I was fast. It reminds me of when I was in Canada, Lisa and I, when we were backpacking, and I filmed we went to see some whales and I had my head stuck behind a video camera for like 40 minutes. And it was how to ruin an experience is trying to actually film it. Lesson learned. 57 miles for the week, 6,000 feet of vert, and the lakes trip didn't bury me. So I'll take that. I don't really want to justify it or say anything about the distance, but it did feel quite controllable for me, 5 or 6 miles each day and then a long run. Before you know it, yeah, best part of 60 miles, 6,000 feet of vert, yeah. Well, I absolutely loved the lakes and to not come back smashed up like I was last time. Happy days. My HRV is in a good place. I'm just kind of sharing a bit of knowledge on the podcast, historical knowledge.
Oh my God. When did this become a thing? Like, I haven't voted this. Have you taken this?
I've got one more for you. Because
is this the last one? This is the last one because I'm still a little bit traumatized by the vote. Let's put a vote on Facebook and then let's just see who wants Gary's useless.
This is how I can pan out my week. Put these little facts in. Well, anyway, I said to somebody about the daylight saving on my dog walk with Rex and they were like, oh, he came back at me. He shared some knowledge. We've heard the phrase sleep tight. It's not spooky. Don't worry. It's not going to go anywhere. The classic explanation behind the phrase sleep tight relates to medieval rope strung beds. The beds, instead of springs, use ropes that needed to be tied tightly under the mattress to keep it secure in place. Hence the phrase sleep tight.
I already knew that.
Did you know that?
Didn't everybody do a lot of that sort of stuff at school? That sort of like...
Well, it was a long time ago for me. I don't remember.
Yeah, you see, it's only 5 years ago for me.
Okay, so that's me, yeah. 57 miles, 6,000 feet, and I'm not buried. Looking forward to next week.
Easy week.
Easy miles. The emails will be coming in.
The emails will be flooding in.
Thanks, X Miles, the one-stop kit and nutrition shop, for sponsoring our main interview. And don't forget, patrons can receive 10% off over at www.xmiles.co.uk. I used Active Root gel mix on my run on Friday and some old school classic mint cake and a few baby bells too. I basically put 8 scoops of the gel mix, then filled the rest of the bottle up with water. And then the other bottle had precision fuel, hydration, and electrolyte. So I was getting the kind of 2 levers there and it served me well. So that, I think I had 2 bars of mint cake, about 4 baby bells and then 8 gels.
Bells. Baby bells, they're not really for training. They're for racing. They don't overdo them on the training days.
Well, yeah, I just thought, well, I'm going to incorporate this because there will be a time when we reintroduce ourselves to each other.
But
and it didn't really trigger me.
You and the baby bells.
Well, it didn't trigger me on the 13 Valleys. It was like a saviour. So I'm not too sure why I'm trying to educate my gut with the old baby bells. But I just thought it was good practice to keep them in with the nutrition. But yeah, just over 4 hours on the trails. And that is a level of running or a duration of running where you're not really triggered by food fatigue. So I need to go a bit longer. Test it maybe 7 hours. 7 hours if I can do. Well, that's 2 to Helvellyn. 2 to Helvellyn is going to be, could be 8 hours for me. So that will be a good
9.
test. This week's guest is Luke Grenfell-Shaw. Oh my goodness me, this is such an inspirational story. And it was such a treat to share the mics with Luke, from cancer diagnosis to cycling from Bristol to Beijing and many, many journeys beyond that. You're in for a treat, guys. I hope you enjoy our chat with Luke Grenfell-Shaw. Luke Grenfell-Shaw is an incredibly inspiring individual diagnosed with stage 4 cancer at the age of 24. He decided to embark on an extraordinary journey to show that life can still be rich and fulfilling even with cancer. Luke began his Bristol to Beijing expedition in January 2020, cycling from Bristol to Beijing on a tandem bike. Despite the challenges of the COVID pandemic, he completed the 30,000 kilometre route, raising over £300,000 for cancer-related charities. Luke coined the term CanLiver to describe people with cancer who continue to live their life to the fullest. He shared his journey with 817 people, including 25 CanLivers. Luke has been recognised by the UK government with a Point of Light award for his efforts. His journey has been covered by major media outlets like the BBC, ITV, Channel 5 and Discovery Network. And Luke is currently working on a book and a documentary about his expedition, expected to be released in early 2024. Luke's story is a testament to the power of hope and resilience. Welcome to the Tea and Trails podcast, Luke. How did AI do? Is it a 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10?
I mean, it's scarily good, and it's absolutely wonderful to be here. So thanks, Eddie and Gary. It's really nice to be here. Yeah, I'd give that a solid 9. I think the one thing is we actually ended up raising £130,000 for cancer charities, so I don't want to overclaim that.
Okay.
A lot of it is so familiar, I do wonder if I wrote it and then AI has just
for sure.
pulled it off the internet. But yeah, I think that's all about right. But as I think we'll talk about later, the film has just been finished and is going to be shown at Kendal Mountain Festival for its premiere in, 2 weeks, maybe a week or so when this comes out.
Yeah, just over a week, yeah.
And the book has still got a lot more work to do on it, so that will not be coming out quite yet either. So yeah, it's not a bad summary.
Well, we'll touch on all of that. Hopefully with this interview, we'll work our way through all those points that AI mentioned. First things first, we ask all our guests, where are you? What's the view from your window? And have you been for a run today?
I love that question. So I am in Almaty in Kazakhstan right now. It's the former capital. I'm guessing you probably haven't had anyone say that before.
No. I love it. And now I need to ask what you've had for breakfast as well.
Well, what took you to Kazakhstan as well? Okay, loads of questions already.
Okay, carry on, Gary, carry on.
The view out my window is, it's autumn here. I can see sort of trees that they kind of move past the kind of blazing yellow and orange, and the leaves are a bit drooping and most of them are falling off now. And I'm looking to the north. But if I was to look to the south, you would see these beautiful snow-covered mountains, which make Almaty such a special destination, in my opinion, because literally you're in the foothills of mountains. So I run from where I stay here right up into the mountains, but then I could also run down or take a bike down and go to the theatre or go to any number of different cafes, and it's a really vibrant city. And basically during the Second World War, the Soviet Union moved all of its intellectuals from Moscow to Almaty, away from the front line. And since then, it's really kept and maintained a lot of that kind of vibrancy and sort of intellectual glitter.
And what took you there? I'm fascinated because I think I've heard maybe another podcast that you spent some time in Russia, Kazakhstan now. Yeah, what's the interest with this part of the world?
So I was really lucky to study Russian at school. I got my A-level in Russian and I thought I was fluent, and then I went out to Russia and discovered that an A-level in Russian means nothing of the sort.
Yeah. Where is the station? Where is the state? Why you can't seem to...
Exactly. You think that sort of your basic language is actually fluency, and then I mean, since then, the last sort of 12 years, it's been a very slow but enjoyable journey to try and improve my Russian. And I spent a bit of time out in Russia on and off up until 2018. And then I kind of discovered Central Asia, which to me takes some of the best bits the most interesting bits about Russian culture or Soviet culture. And still you can speak Russian in pretty much all of these former Soviet territories, such as Kazakhstan or Kyrgyzstan. But then you also have you've got the kind of culture that's been there for a long time, which is more linked to sort of nomadism, particularly in Kazakhstan. People, my masseuse Danya, he can trace his generations back all the way back to Genghis Khan, 22 generations. And, I have a history lesson each time I have a massage with him, which is just wonderful. And then you've also got kind of, Arab, well, not Arab, but Muslim culture that has sort of spread across from the Middle East hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So I find it a very interesting dynamic. And then you've got China, being the sort of dominant power in the region along with Russia, but that influence pushing over across the border. And so I find it a very interesting place to be.
It sounds fast. Sounds so rich culturally as well. Eddie and I, we're going to drag it down, talk about this culturally rich. Eddie and I run our tandem. We'll come to see you, knock on your door.
We would never be on a tandem because I'd be doing all the work and you'd just be sitting there.
Hey, no way. How does it work on a tandem actually? Can both people push, or does one do all the work?
Both people definitely can push. And at least in my experience, you can definitely tell if the person on the back is or is not pushing as well. There's like the common gag is basically like, oh yeah, the person on the back's half asleep, or like the person on the back's, they're on a holiday. But you absolutely can feel the power going through the pedals from the front and the back. So yeah, it's very much a joint endeavor, but it is wonderful because you can get your workout on the front, and if the other person wants to take it easy on the back, that's great. You just go a bit slower.
Have you been for a run today? I can't remember.
I had a session today. Yeah, it was sort of 6 by 6 minutes at our pace. Ooh. So it's not super quick. You're not juicing it.
Juicing it. I've not heard that before. I love it.
So I have to give lots of credit to my coach, David Roach, who I started working with. Are you a fan? Yes. David Roach. If you're not going to listen to this, he's got.
Me and Megan are in talks to do a joint podcast once she's had a baby. So yeah, we will. There will be at some point a collaboration. Yeah. But yeah. Oh, okay. So not juicing it. Love it. Just stacking, Luke. Just stacking that session, stacking those bricks.
Yeah. And then, but I mean, for me, I feel so lucky to be working with David because I mean, his energy, his knowledge, and he's brought a whole new way to how I think about running and training. And so, yeah, this was a 6 by 6 minutes, and then followed that by 5K at sort of 50K pace. So that's kind of like that zone 2 flow where you're moving nice and easily, but you're moving quick. And I never would have done that a year ago, and I definitely wouldn't have done just like 6 by 6 minutes at sort of hour intensity, because I'd have been like, well, I've just run for an hour hours intensity. Like, why wouldn't I do that? And so, yeah, I've learned so much this year, and I feel so grateful to David.
So how's that fitting? Because you recently 4th at the Ultra Trail. Is it Nanghai? And you've also got a spicy race coming up in December. Not a lot of turnaround. So yeah, how does that all fit in the ecosystem of training?
Good question. I love racing, as I think, a lot of people do, and or you need to if you race over 100K, I think, or these long distances. I think I always go through this fluctuation of, well, as soon as I finish the race, I'm like, oh, that was fine, wasn't it? Like it was a bit difficult, but you like immediately forget like how difficult it was. Yeah. And then you get into the next race and you're like 30 or 40K in, and you're like, my legs, they're absolutely whacked. But I'm out. I'm tapping out. And then you're like, I still got another 60K to go. And then, you do the next 20K, and then you've got 40K to go, and you're like, right, if I do 10 more K, I've got 30K to go. And like 30K is all right, isn't it? And then after I've done another 10K, then it's 20K to go. It feels manageable. But I think the short answer is I don't always get it right. And I think now David and I were looking back, I had a great result at Val d'Aran, the UTMB European Major, 110K. And actually I looked between that and CCC. And whilst there's some acute factors why I DNF'd at CCC, I think I overheated, I didn't get the hydration right. But I think as well, I didn't recover enough from Val d'Aran, and I was always playing catch up in every single training session. I was just about hitting the numbers, but mentally I always felt behind. Whereas now I feel like I'm ahead, and I'm kind of excited for each training session because I kind of feel I can get on top of it rather than be chasing this disappearing train.
Always be on the back seat of the tandem rather than on the front. You can decide when to push down the pedals and when to just take it easy a little bit.
Okay, as much or as little as you want to share, but who is Luke Grenfell-Shaw, and how did you get into ultra running?
It's always a difficult question to answer that. I try and think that running is just 25% of my life. It might now actually be more like 50%. But I always try and keep lots of different elements alive because I think that balance is so important. Yes, runner, but right now also filmmaker, writer, shooter, traveler, do a bit on Instagram.
You said you had some lessons later. Are you teaching English?
Yes, I teach English and sort of sciences to secondary school kids. It's tutoring, and I can do it from my laptop, and that really has allowed me to work, train a lot, live in different places, and put time into making this film and the book. And I feel very lucky to have that, because it does underpin right now this lifestyle more than anything else, at least financially.
I interrupted you, sorry. That you were saying, but you haven't always been a runner as much as it's been a thread in your life. You mentioned triathlon earlier on. Are you one of these people? Are you one of my crowd?
Well, so it starts really, I guess, when I was 5, 6, 7, and as a family we went orienteering. It was certainly not a cool sport. When you go into like primary school,
it's not
and
still
everyone's
not cool,
like,
Luke.
I know it's not. And like, everyone's like, oh, what did you do this weekend? Like, I played football. Yeah, like maybe a couple of guys like, rugby. And I'll be like, oh, we did orienteering. And I was like, what's that?
If you lived in Finland, you would have been one of the cool kids. That's like a massive sport over there.
Too bad I was in Bristol, where everyone's like, okay, so you take a compass and a map and you run around a forest. You're not normal. You're clearly a bit odd. And, I think it paved the way perhaps for the ultra running many, many years later. But I think at the time it felt like hard work, and you got lots of prickles from brambles. And I just remember like limp cucumber sandwiches that my mum, bless her, had made, like that we would eat in the car. Me and my brother would eat in the car, waiting for mum and dad to sort of do their longer courses. And we'd just be sort of like, gently sort of steaming in the car, like just waiting to drive back home. Those are my like gold tinted memories of orienteering, that actually, as we say, stacking bricks young. You start them young.
Where did it lead then? Orienteering into?
Then about age 14, I got into running in a big way. I dropped the map and the compass, and I just loved the headspace I got from running. And I would run like an hour every day. And that got me a bit into cross country running. I was okay. I wasn't anything special or outstanding, but then I also didn't really understand what training was, and no one ever explained it to me. Probably could have been a lot better, but as it was, I was like, I'll run 10K, decent run, isn't it?
You probably didn't even know you ran 10K because you probably just went for a run. I tell my kids, like, how far did you run? And they're like, I don't know, Mum. I went down that road, and then I went that way, and then I went that way. And I'm like, do you not need the stats? When you're a kid, it's like, no, I saw a hedgehog.
Priorities. And I think we got so much. I actually genuinely think that is such a beautiful way to run. Isn't that more important in a way? Like, you saw a hedgehog,
so much more important than the stats. Though we say that, we're all lying.
I do slightly remember running before. I think it was heart rate monitors were quite popular, but I do remember time before GPS watches, the golden days of running. I suppose move on to your cancer diagnosis. When did cancer enter your life? And I suppose, how did you find out with the symptoms?
Yeah, to move through my teens and up to the point I got diagnosed with cancer, doing cross country. Then at 17, I moved into duathlon and then triathlon, primarily because I found, I had more success there with a bit of a bike. I was a decent-ish cyclist, and you put the package together and it pushes you further up the rankings. And that's what I did at university, triathlon. And then after graduating from Durham, I went out to Russia to teach English, but really to study Russian and to move towards this goal that has forever seemed sort of unattainable. It's like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow of like speaking fluent Russian. But I went out there to get really good Russian. I was out in Siberia at this city called Tyumen, 24 years old. And, I was in really good shape. I did my first ultra marathon out there in the Ural Mountains, 50K. I thought it was the hilliest thing ever. My hip flexors were absolutely ruined the next day. I mean, I could not walk downstairs. I mean, I literally slipped down the stairs on my bum. That's how much I couldn't walk down the stairs. And I look back at that race now, and there was 1,000 meters of elevation in it. And I was like, okay, so it's not actually that. It wasn't that much climbing. But, so I was in good shape, building this community of friends, starting my new life as like an adult for the first time. For months, I'd had this ache in my left shoulder, which, as any athlete, you get aches. You get aches in your knee, you get aches in your hip, whatever. And, I'd just sort of shake off my left shoulder a bit and sort of crack on with life. And this went on for, months. And it kind of got progressively worse. And I went to see a physio, and the physio said it was a winged scapula, which means your scapula is kind of, your shoulder blade is slipping round because your muscles aren't strong enough to pull them together. So I was like, I just need to do more band exercises, and like it just doesn't occur to you that it could be anything more serious because you're 24. You fast forward to sort of May, June 2018, and like eventually I sort of was like, one day I was like, I should actually just go to the doctor and just see what's going on. One of the schools I was working in, it was a sort of primary school, so there was a nurse on site, and like I'd kind of pass her door every day, and I was like, one day I was like, I'll actually just go through the door and say hi. Matronly, very Russian matronly nurse, and she's kind of like quite sort of abrupt, and she's like, why are you here? And I'm like, I think I've got a pain in my shoulder, but my Russian's not very good. So I'm like, it's not painful, but it's sort of painful because I'm trying to say it's aching. And she was just like, right, take your shirt off and I'll have a look. And all the way up to this point, for the last 6 months, I'm like, it's fine. This is just an ache. Take my shirt off. Turn around. And she says, Bоже mой. Which means, oh my God.
Bоже mой.
Bоже mой. And it's like, oh my God, like, and she was like, have you like come off your bike? Have you had an accident? And I'm like, no. Okay. And then things move so quick after that. I mean, 48 hours later, I'm back in the UK. Like I call my mum and she's suddenly like, she's just like, wait, this is really, we need to be back. You need to be back in the UK.
So it's visibly different. If you looked at you from behind, left and right, there's no symmetry.
Maybe I'll send you a photo that you can put with this. Okay. Yeah, like I didn't explain that. Basically, what had happened, it's like someone had blown up a balloon beneath my left shoulder blade, and it's almost like I had a super big lat muscle on my left-hand side. Okay. It had sort of popped out, and it was all kind of weirdly smooth, but I'd been living by myself, and so I'd sort of look over the back of my shoulder in the mirror, and I'd be like, if I do this and I pull my shoulder blades together, it sort of looks normal. I look back at the photos, it's like kind of Frankensteinian or something.
Yeah, and then you're back in the UK.
Yeah, back in the UK. I have tests done. Then we had to wait for 3 weeks for the results to come back because they were sort of really trying to work out what it was. And yeah, then on the 19th of June, 2018, we go into hospital and the doctors tell me, by this point I was like, it's cancer. Like I'm, the wool has been pulled from my eyes. I'm like, this is cancer, but cancer's fine. We can deal with this. Modern medicine, I believe in modern medicine. And then they told me it's not just in your left shoulder. You've got 13 lung nodules. It's a very rare, very aggressive form of cancer that doesn't readily respond to treatment. Your lifespan is measured in months or perhaps at the tops, a year or a couple of years, something like that.
Fortunately, it's never touched my life. But then what are the next steps then? What would the consultant say? Would the treatments... Are you offered various treatments, or would it be different if someone had stage 2 cancer? Or are the limitations to what a consultant would say you could do?
So I think if it had been stage 2 cancer and hadn't spread to my lungs, they would have tried to have operated on the primary tumor and removed it, but in my left shoulder. But the problem was that left shoulder, the tumor in my left shoulder was now basically half wrapped around my rib cage. So if they were to operate it on this point, because I'd left it for so long, it hadn't occurred to me it was cancer. They would have literally had to remove sort of half of my left rib cage to have removed that tumor with the margins. But there would have been no point doing that because there was also the lung metastases in my lungs. There's no point removing the primary tumor when the lung metastases are the things that are going to kill you anyway. I don't know how the chemotherapy might differ from stage to stage. I think the typical response would have been that for the chemotherapy I had, which was some pretty strong stuff, ifosfamide and doxorubicin, that it would have bought me some time. I'm very, very, very fortunate to be alive right now because the typical thing would have, 99% of people would have died probably within a year or two.
Did you believe it when the oncologist said to you that diagnosis? Was there a moment of, or maybe even days of, this can't be right? Did you feel ill at the time?
By that point, running had become very uncomfortable. And I actually had in my left armpit by this point, in the sort of lymph node there, I had which is one of the things that really pushed me to go to the nurse in the first place. I had it was growing there as well. So by the time I was in Russia, it would turn into a golf ball size. And by the time I was back in the UK, it was practically a tennis ball, so I was obviously, something was very wrong at that point. Physically, my legs were fine. I was still able to cycle and run.
You're an endurance athlete. You're like, probably still, the legs are fine.
Yeah, and they were, and so my shoulder ached a huge amount. So I stopped running very much, but I'd still cycle. I more or less did believe it in the sense from the beginning, although I was like, how at the same time,
getting your head
24
around
years
it.
old.
Yeah.
I think the difficult thing was that up till that point, I'd been very fortunate in my upbringing, my background, and I'd lived in a world where if I'd worked hard, I'd got results and life made sense, And this was the first time where life in no way made sense.
How is this my journey? This isn't my journey. This is not the journey of somebody who's in their 20s. Were you immediate? Because Chris Hoy has recently come out that he is also stage 4 cancer. And I'm so flabbergasted that people who are given that sort of news, and I don't know if it's immediate, and this is what I'm trying to sort of understand, is then immediately turn it into something so positive and like, right, what can I do? How was your journey into that? Where did you come out of the office and go, I'm a fighter, this isn't the path I'm going to take? No. Or did it take time? Was there a bit of a grieving process and then you were like, right, this isn't me, what am I going to do?
So when I got told that news, it felt like my life fell apart, and it literally everything disintegrated. And I was looking at, I'd just been told I had, more or less a, death sentence. And I was perhaps, very much, if the chemotherapy hadn't been that effective, I could have been dead by the end of that year. And that's very much sort of at that point was on the cards, and very much in my mind, I might not see Christmas. To put you into that meant that's the headspace I was in.
Yeah.
And, so I went home and I was crying into the sofa. I was, just so distraught and devastated. And I remember at the time I was reading Shantaram, and I was trying to read that book and sort of lose myself in this semi-fantasy incredible world, and yet I couldn't outrun or escape the thing because it was inside of me. But then you are sort of like, what is that process of turning that absolute desperation and horror into something more positive? And that didn't come from within inside me, I would say initially. On the day I was diagnosed, my dad said, later in the afternoon, do you want to go for a run together? You'll feel better. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, there's no way I'm going for a run. Didn't you just hear the news? And he was there. He obviously knew everything. But eventually we went out for a run. And yeah, obviously we're all running junkies. Like, running makes everything feel better. Like, I don't think I've ever regretted going out for a run. There's so many things that you might be like, I wish I'd done that today, or I've wasted time, but I don't think I've ever gone for a run and was like, that's a bit of a waste of time,
No, never. I hear you.
Anyway, so we ran out onto the downs and over to the Bristol suspension bridge, and my dad said to me, look, as a father, this is the worst thing I can imagine. My son getting stage 4 cancer, being told he's going to die, but there's nothing I can do about it. And there's nothing you can do about the fact you have stage 4 cancer now. You do have a choice over how you spend these final months alive. What do you want to fill them with? And I guess that was the prompter for me.
Orienteering? Did he suggest that in your mind?
No, we'd moved beyond that point. We're like, it was, definitely more on the sort of like, let's have a flat white, coffee. I haven't got any more interesting in my age. It's like, let's just go for a coffee. But there was very much my mentality of like, well, what can I do in this time that I've got left? Do I want to spend my last 6 months alive full of rage and misery, in which case I just live a miserable last 6 months? Or can I try as much as I can within, the fact I'm going to go and have chemotherapy, which is not a pleasant experience, to try and make that the best experience, best time possible? And then the other really key thing for me, particularly being faced with such terrible odds, which I never looked up, but I knew they were terrible, was, well, what can I do to put myself in that 1%? I don't know if it was 1% or not. It was probably around that. But it was a mental game. Like, what can I do to put myself in that 1%? If only 1% of people survive, what can I do to be in that 1%? And for me, that really revolved around exercising through my treatment and thinking about my diet. And then I also was very fortunate to have amazing support from my mum and dad and friends as well. But we can dive into exercise through treatment at some point potentially. But that was a key part of that positive mindset.
The athlete, you turn to the athlete inside you, and it being surrounded by a parental support of, they're obviously athletes too, and they were like, this is your comfortable space, but you've also been developing that mindset since you were sitting in the car with foggy windows eating cucumber sandwiches of like, you are the 1% of different people. It wasn't your safe space, but it was a space that you, I guess as well, that was quite comforting to you. When did the idea come, what you were going to actually do with this time that you thought that you had less? Whose idea was the tandem?
On the day that I was diagnosed, I think literally in the room with the doctor, there was this like little nugget in my head of like, if I somehow get through this, I know what I want to do with my final few months alive.
Really? That soon? Literally, it was there?
Yes, but that's also because it wasn't the first time I'd thought that. You know, I'd sort of thought when I was sort of 15, 16, I really want to cycle around the world. I had an aborted attempt to sort of do a really long distance cycle trip during my gap year. And, you know, I'd done other big cycle adventures before, so it wasn't out of the blue. But it came as this very clear idea that then got put on ice for a long time because I was going through treatment. But, you know, it was like, if I don't have the time to do anything else, I want to try and cycle around the world. And you asked where the tandem came from. And I guess this is the sort of the other really significant part of my story and has changed my mindset. In those sort of 3 weeks between me getting diagnosed with cancer and starting chemotherapy, just once or twice, I was like vaguely talking about these ideas with my brother John, who's a great cyclist. I don't know if we actually discussed it, but I think there was an understanding we'd do some of it, all of it together. During my first round of chemotherapy, John was up in the Lake District with some friends doing basically a big game of catch. Hare and hounds. It was something he was so passionate about. He did it for years, you know, with the same group, went back every year. It was like the highlight of his year. This time we never really know how, but he was on some steep fell side and he slipped and he fell and he died. His head, he died. And so, and I was in hospital with my first round of chemotherapy at that point. And so I wasn't able to share the cycle ride with John anymore, but I still wanted to share that cycle ride. And I thought, well, that John and I were obviously going to do it on separate bikes, but I realized that not that many people were really, it would be very difficult. You know, if I'm cycling around the world and other people join me for stints, I'm going to be super fit. They're not. Like, how can I make this accessible as possible? How can I get as many different people to join me as possible? Let's do it on a tandem. And it became such a beautiful thing that, you know, people from around the world, people with cancer, who I call CanLivers, you can live with cancer, you richly and fully, but also living with cancer is a pretty tough and huge challenges. And I just hate the term cancer survivor, so I had to find a new term. Yeah. And it was just such a beautiful thing that I got people from all around the world to join me, people who had like cycled once or twice in their life, you know, or someone, you know, I had a guy from India, Dev, who joined me for over 1,000 miles. And he wasn't a sportsman. The last time he cycled a bike was 3 years ago. He had every excuse to like not ride. He rocked up in a pair of jeans and a jumper. Brilliant. And was like, and I'm like, Deb, are you going to put on your cycle kit? And he's like, oh, this is my cycle kit. I was like, right, well, off we go then. Deb had been kind of diagnosed with cancer when he was a couple of years old as well. And he cycled halfway across India. And to me, that was what the tandem enabled and was so special about it, is that people from any different background, any different level of exercise were able to sort of join in this adventure. And that made it immensely special. And
I guess as well, having the sort of metaphor of the tandem as well is that it is a bicycle for two, because presumably sometimes you were by yourself as well, but your brother was always with you because there were two seats and there's two sets of pedals, and he was there, I'm sure, looking down on you going, you're mad, but brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, there definitely were times where I was by myself, and I think, I'm not even sure he'd have been like, you're mad. He'd just been like, yeah,
keep pedaling.
That's about right. Yeah, keep going. You know, like,
why are you stopping?
Stop moaning.
Stop moaning. Can we just touch on, before we go a little bit more into the adventure itself, you talk about, and something that I think many people that will be listening to that might be fighting cancer themselves, have friends, family fighting cancer as well, and that you're really passionate about as well, is exercising within that parameter of a cancer diagnosis and then cancer treatment. Presumably there's not a lot of research out there that were you in the very much minority of having chemo and then being like, now I'm going running, and the nurses were like, no, you need to rest? How did you balance it? Was it an experiment of one-on-one?
Yeah, it's such good question. questions, Eddie.
Sorry, so many questions.
Yeah, do pick up if I kind of I'll try and answer as much as possible, but I'll probably miss some stuff.
No, just keep talking.
I'd love to talk about Move Against Cancer, because I think they are like the place to get advice and support.
We'll put all their details in the show notes as well, if anybody is looking for more explanations, answers, or just a point of reference as well.
But yeah, Move Against Cancer, the most amazing, like exercise community to help people be active before, during, and after cancer, and everyone sort of surrounding that CanLiver, and just the friendliest, most empowering group of people. So maybe we can talk more about them later, but they're just fantastic. I was amazed on the day that I was diagnosed, and I said to the doctor and the nurse, I was like, okay, so what can I do? Even just after this news, I was like, okay, should I be thinking about like not eating brownies? Like, should I be thinking about exercise? And they're like, nah, doesn't matter. You just look after yourself. Like relax, chill. And I was like, are you telling me that exercise doesn't matter? Because like that is class 1 BS. Like I know how much like exercise matters, and like changes my mood, gives me energy. Just as well I went for a run this morning before doing this podcast. Otherwise, I'd be like a sloth. Just like it makes such a difference. So, I didn't pay any attention to them, thank goodness. And I had the support, particularly of my dad, who was quite sort of left of field here. And he like brought my exercise bike, the turbo from my road bike, into my chemotherapy room. And then, one of the first days, my doctor consultant walks in and he sees me like pedaling away on the bike, and the chemo drips in my arm. Half the color like leaches out of his face, and he's like, God, what's... No, on a serious note, I was pedaling really gently. I think that the key message I found myself, at least, was like, even the tiniest amount of physical exercise during chemotherapy or radiotherapy or any treatment is infinitely more than nothing. You're not going to be doing what you could do before. But if I go, for me, I was able to do like an hour's walk, super gentle walk. I'd have 4 hours every 24 hours when I wasn't attached to a drip. And I'd spend 1 or so of those hours going for a very, very gentle walk around Bristol Harbourside. And I might do like a 20 or 30 minute super gentle cycle on the turbo. This wasn't a session, but it was a lot more than nothing. Anyway, my consultant goes away, slightly panicked, wondering if his patient is about to sort of keel over, not from the chemotherapy, but from the exercise. Comes in the next day and he's like, well, there aren't that many studies about people with your type of cancer, and the impact that exercise had. But I found the study on mice, which is sort of similar, and a sort of similar cancer. And actually, like the mice that did this time on the exercise, on the treadmill, had a much better response. And what we're seeing is more and more research giving more and more evidence that exercise as an intervention can be incredibly effective. One, like improving the efficacy of chemotherapy. So you get a better response to chemotherapy. Your blood vessels dilate more. The theory is your blood vessels are dilating more. The chemotherapy gets to more different parts of the cancer, gets deeper in, better circulation. Also, it improves your resilience to chemotherapy. So I was able to tolerate a very aggressive chemotherapy regime, probably partly because I exercised through it. So I maintained my strength, and the health of your organs and whatever else fails, sort of it helps there massively as well. And I think also mentally, I think it's a hugely, we obviously do talk a lot about mental health now, but in this particular context, as a patient undergoing chemotherapy, it's very easy to become passive, and you are measured, you are injected, you are prodded, you're told, where to pee, and your pee is measured. They want to see like how hydrated you are, so you're peeing it not into a toilet, but into a cardboard tube. You're told when to go to bed, not quite, but it's that kind of gist. And you lose agency as a person. And I think it's a really important way of saying, I'm Luke Grenfell-Shaw. Yes, all this is happening to me, but Luke Grenfell-Shaw goes for a walk and he gets on his exercise bike, and this is how he deals with chemotherapy in his own way. And that is very, very, I think, a very, very important facet of it as well, in addition to all the endorphins that you get from exercise, which is obviously a natural sort of mood boost, and I think also really powerful.
When did the markers begin to show that it wasn't going to be months?
There was never that kind of, no one ever talked about it in those terms, but I'll answer your question in two different ways. First of all, when did I first know the chemotherapy was working? Was actually, I think, maybe even after the first or second rounds. And I went for a walk with a friend of my brother's who had come down. At the end of the walk, I just realized that my shoulder hadn't ached. And it was the first time that my shoulder hadn't ached when, because my arm was hanging down, and that it was always aching before. That was the first time it hadn't ached in like 6 months or something. And I was like, oh, something seems to be happening. This is a good sign. Now, to sort of answer your question in a different way, and I think this is the bit that's very difficult to explain now that I'm 6 years down the line, is even after the chemotherapy, basically what the doctors told me was, doesn't really matter how effective the chemotherapy is going to be. Your cancer will return in your lungs at some point and it's going to kill you. And so they were reluctant to do surgery on the primary tumor underneath my left shoulder blade because they're like, well, we could operate there, but it's not going to make a difference to the overall outcomes because your lung tumor is going to come back. And so every 3 months, for the last 6 years, more or less, I've had a scan on my lungs. Certainly for the first 3 or 4 years, every single time I was like, this could be it.
Oh my
and
God.
Even now, there are no guarantees. It's not what is known as, like, I suppose, a curable cancer where you can say, okay, it's been treated, it's been successfully treated, you can go on and live your life. This is a situation where it's been treated and the expectation was at some point the cancer will come back. It hasn't yet, which is just totally amazing.
So is the constant anxiety, Luke, with that?
I think it's expressed in different ways. Yes. I think it does come out in a sense in anxiety. I think I saw it more in terms of timelines. I would only in the past think in 3-month timelines. Like beyond 3 months just did not exist for me. So I remember talking with a friend when we were planning this cycle ride, and they were like, initially I was like, oh, it's going to be 10 months. And then I sort of was thinking, oh, maybe it's actually going to be 14. And they're like, you can't do that, like you can't just say, it's 10 months and then it's 14 months. It's like it impacts other people. And to me, it was just like a really strange idea because I was like, well, 10 months or 14 months, neither of them existed. All I had was, it was so theoretical. It wasn't even important to me because like next year was also just impossibly inconceivable.
I don't want to spoil the details of the journey because we want people to enjoy the film. I'm loving the fact they get a flavour of your journey to the film and then they can go and watch the film and go, they feel they know you a little bit maybe before the film starts. Where did the idea come from to make a film about the journey? I
think from a very early stage, like before I started the expedition from Bristol to Beijing, I knew I wanted a film to come from it. Because I think I just knew that this was, I guess, two things. One, I just knew it was like a cool story, what had happened, like it was a quite unusual, like the series of events that happened in my life. And then I started giving a few talks at like schools and universities, and it was the most incredible experience for me on a personal level because I found that when I shared this story, for at least some people in the room, it really touched them and changed the way that they thought. And I would get people coming up to me afterwards or like get messages weeks afterwards saying how they'd done something differently. And I was like, oh my God, like this is so cool. Like in a way of like, because in my life before, I don't know, I was just like, write some essays, teach some English classes.
Speak some Russian.
Speak some Russian.
How is your Russian now? Are you fluent?
It's conversational. I can get about fine. I've realized that fluency is at once sort of at the same time sort of it's a very abstract concept. I right now live with two Russians here in Almaty. We speak most of the time, nearly all the time in Russian. And Dasha, who I live with, she's another great trail runner. She speaks amazing English. I mean, it's, she loves all the idioms. She loves all of that. She still doesn't necessarily feel that she feels fluent in English. And I'm like, dude, you are like 100% fluent. And she's like, but like, I didn't understand that. Yeah. And like, you make these mistakes. And
I think the thing is as well, my children are fluent in French, but there are intricacies to the language and phrases and things that they will never truly get because their mother tongue is English and they haven't had that sort of like, exposure to certain things that we have in our language that the Russians obviously have in their language as well, that you will only know if really you're sort of like born and bred and you've been there. So the language is there, but I guess, that fluency of, sometimes people start talking about things and they'll think, I don't know. what are they talking about? Doesn't
Do
really
the languages shift as much as English though? Literally, I can go 4 miles north to south, and we're northern, but we have quite a different take on the language. Is that the same for France and Russia?
Oh, well, yeah, the French, there's a very different accent. Yeah, where we were, the haut savoir, the way they form the verbs and things were different, but just like an accent, I guess, like a really thick. Some of my neighbours, I just couldn't understand what they were saying because they're thick like the mountain accent. I don't know. It must be the same in Russian as well. Different accents for different.
Well, actually, what's interesting about Russia is that it's very standardized generally. And that's a result of the Soviet Union and basically a very conscious decision.
Yes.
To send like Muscovite and teachers and people from St. Petersburg out into this, out into Kyrgyzstan, into Tajikistan, into Georgia, into all around the former Soviet Union to teach this standardized pronunciation. And yes, there are differences in accents. And, Muscovite Russian is very kind of like, I'd say, clipped and glassy and like, it's like a machine gun, if that's not too inappropriate kind of a metaphor to you. It's a very like
Yeah.
Whereas in Kazakhstan, people tend to talk a bit more slowly, which makes it a bit easier to understand.
Yes,
so I feel better about my Russian here.
It's a bit like the Swiss French. I always really enjoyed that because I'd feel that they were speaking to me like a teacher and I could really understand it. And yet then the Parisians would start speaking. I'd be like,
Yeah, but we just make words up regionally. If you're a Cockney, you've got a different language. I could say words. Somebody who wasn't English would just wouldn't get that whatsoever. It's fascinating. I absolutely love it.
Mm-hmm. We've digressed. If you want to touch a little bit more on about Move Against Cancer charity, you can dive back into episode 59 with Lucy Gossage, her spine episode, and she is a founding member of this charity. Am I right in saying that, Luke? She is a huge advocate for this and a huge advocate in our sport as well. So you can also find Move Against Cancer. They have a really great inspirational Instagram page as well. So I want to jump forward because I'd love to share loads of details. I bet, oh my gosh, well, there's a film about it. So the Tandem adventure is incredible, but it's out there as a film. And so we're going to leave that for people to go to. And most people, I'm sure, listening will be making their way to Kendall Mountain.
It's premiering, its world premiere will be on the 24th of November at the Kendall Mountain Festival at 2:15 on the Sunday 24th. So you can get your tickets online or follow me on Instagram on the link through there. It will be doing a film tour across the UK. Yeah, it'll end up on the streaming platform at some point. But this is the first chance to see it. Come to Kendall, say hi.
Oh, wow, incredible. So you've got the flavour of Luke now, and I'm sure, if I could go and watch that film now, and I think it would mean almost a little bit more to me now. I know I've got a tiny little nugget of your backstory into that film. So the film is there, the story's there. You're back from Beijing, you've come back. This must be like 2019 now, is it? No, 2020 when you're back?
I set off in 2020, did the ride through the pandemic, which is not brilliant timing, and then I finished it on the 19th of June, 2022. So that was like my 4-year cancer diagnosis anniversary. So I finished it, over 2 years ago now.
So I'm thinking you get back with the Tandem and you're like, I am done. Tandem, biking, done. And then your trainers are like a little bit muddy by the door and they go, Luke, remember us? Luke, it's so easy. It's so much easier than cycling. Put us on. When did you put your trainers back on and what is that journey now from the Tandem ride to you are now a Gary's and my dream, fully paid up professional runner.
Sponsored athlete.
And very much my dream when I was like 15 or 16. Actually, my dream was to be a professional cricketer. I was just awful at cricket, but like...
Oh, man. Still could be. Still could happen.
No, it couldn't happen. I'm sorry. No, Eddie. No, it's past. Okay. But, it's very much my dream. And I feel so grateful now to be like living this dream of like, I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. People give me shoes. Like, wow, like this is awesome. And I literally do get to travel the world to do some races in amazing places. What did that journey look like? Well, I never actually put my trainers away because I knew
you wouldn't have. I was just like building the scene. I knew you were going to. I was hoping you were going to go, I still was running at it. Don't be ridiculous. And I go, I know.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Yeah, I all through the trip, I ran basically every single day for at least like half an hour or like 6K. And yeah, at a couple of points during the trip, I got this sort of inkling, not deliberately, that ultra running would be sort of I was opening doors to it. So the key time, I think, was I was in New Delhi for Christmas 2021. There was a race on Boxing Day in some hills just to the south of Delhi. I thought, oh, this sounds like a great way of spending Boxing Day. And I entered the 67K race. And I was like, that's going to be, I could definitely do a marathon, so there's no point entering that. 67K is a challenge. And there was also an 83K, but the 83K, I was like, whoa, like I haven't even run more than like 6K a day. So anyway, I kind of start and like, I just have the best day, It's like one of those beautiful days when you're just like flying and it feels really effortless, and then it feels quite difficult, but you're still kind of moving really nicely. And I ended up when I was about sort of 60K in, 7K to go, and I was like, you know what? I could really keep going. Okay, it's going to take me another hour and a half or 2 hours or something. But like, what else am I going to do in this day? Like, yes, I could get and have a coffee a bit earlier, and I could have a shower 2 hours earlier, but I can do those things later. So I was like, screw it. I'm going to do the 83K. Because this is India, I could just, it was like an out and back effect. So I just did another out and back. And did 83K, and, it just was just an amazing experience. And it was quite a flat course, but I did it in, I think, 6 hours and 12 minutes or something. So like quite fast. And so that was like one of the stepping stones. And then after I finished the ride, and I very much, it was a bit of a very sort of confusing time, as you'd sort of expect, having not expected to even sort of finish this cycle expedition because I thought I'd be dead, and then thinking about what do I do next. And I was very much in that bubble, and like not in a sort of, I wasn't highly motivated. I was in London, which is not a place I now recognize that I love living, it stresses me out. Anyway, but I'd agreed to do this race in Ireland, the Eco Trail Wicklow, 80K. And wasn't really sure if I was in particularly good shape, but agreed to do this, met my friend out there, just had the best day, and sort of, I think at sort of 10K, I was just like, oh, I reckon I can push on a bit. Like before the start, I was like, everyone's going to munch me. Like, this is going to be a terrible time. And
your
then 10K
phrases just kill me. Everybody's going to munch me.
Well, I hope you understand what I mean.
Absolutely. I just love it. I love it.
Yeah. So I thought, this could be quite a messy day. But about 10K, everyone starts really quick. And I'm like, this is difficult. And then everyone starts slowing up, and I'm like, oh, I thought we were running at this pace. And I was like, well, I'm going to carry on. And yeah, I ended up winning that race by about an hour, I think, and there was a guy there, Owen Flynn, who does the commentary for like UTMB. And he was like, you should give this ultra running a real go, and that was the first time where I was like, could I actually be a sort of professional and mix it with the professionals? So that was a really, really big moment. And, just, I think the joy I had of running on that day was very profound as well.
How did Brooks come a-calling? Did you go a-calling, or did they come a-calling?
There could be people who listen to this podcast and they are aspiring. Maybe they want to just be a sport athlete or a full sponsored athlete. I'm fascinated. We know with the podcast, it's a hustle. We talked a little bit before we started recording. It's non-stop. Probably every day, and the journey, the direction of dialogue is usually us knocking on doors.
No, Gary, it's not us, it's you. Eddie just gives you the thumbs up. Yes,
that's the reality. That's the reality of it. If people are out there thinking, I don't know, you could podium at a race or something, or win a race, then all of a sudden the phone's going to start ringing. What was your reality, Luke?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have really summed it up there. That my expectation was, I can win a few races and then people come and knocking on my door, right? So 2023, I was like, I didn't know anything. So I was like, I'm going to do the Golden Trail series, like the national series. I tried to do the World Series, but it was so difficult to get entries for those races. And I'll do some like UTMB races. Had some notable failures, which I think are so important to talk about, like UTMB Istria 100K, was wearing a pair of fell shoes, ended up getting a bruise that, like, on my right foot that was just hugely purple. It's like a plum. And I DNF'd after 50k. That was especially for you, Eddie. Now that you said you like it, I'm just gonna throw some more in. Just like sprinkle them around. So I did some of these national series races. I then won like UTMB Mozart, and I thought, like, okay, I'm going to have Hoka, I'm going to have Brooks, I'm going to have Adidas. They're going to be like,
I'm waiting, guys. This phone. Mom, it's not working. The phone's not working because they should all be calling.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the refresh page. And you're like, why has my inbox not changed?
Oh, I feel it.
And I think you're absolutely right. And everything from that and my experience since is like, you have to hustle, you have to pitch yourself, you have to go to the brand. And you have to convince them you're different and you're better than other people out there, or you're a better choice for some reason, not necessarily just the results. And, I look back now and I think actually, Brooks probably did take a little bit of a chance, even though, I'd just won UTMB Mozart. Now I see it on the bit of the other side of like, okay, you probably want to see an athlete with a UTMB index of it, like at least 850. But to be strong, to be really strong, at least 880. That's like your really strong athletes. And then above 900, you'd be surprised if someone didn't come knocking on your doors, I'd say, for the men, that is. But the way that Brooks got in contact is after Mozart went to a hostel in Salzburg. And, because I was doing this all on my own money or own budget. So I was like, right, hostel room. And then one of the other people in the hostel was like, they'd done the race. And you're like, oh, how'd the race go? And I was like, oh, yeah, it went well. And they're like, wait, didn't you win it? And I was like, yeah, I did win it. And they're like, oh, I didn't realize that the race winners also stayed in hostels. And I was like, well, yeah, then they do. And then she's like, well, I work for Brooks in their marketing department in their European office. And it was really interesting because I had actually emailed Brooks before. I'd emailed all these different brands before, and I hadn't got a single answer. And so what was interesting about that is when it goes from the right person who knows who the person is in the organization and says, you should check this person out, then things start moving. And that's what, led to the partnership with Brooks.
Top Brooks shoe.
I'm a huge fan of the Catamount 3. That is my go-to shoe. I love the Agile, the Catamount Agile. You can't do more than 40k in it. It's just too lightweight and there's not enough cushioning, but it's a really beautiful shoe. Apart from that, those would be my sort of two top choices.
100-mile shoe, would you wear one of those for the Lakeland 100?
Asking for a friend.
Who's your Brooks contact?
we can see what we can do.
Shameless.
I have never. You've got to take, but I mean, this is it though. Like, if anyone is listening and like, how do you get a contract? You've got to hustle. You've got to take that opportunity to be like, okay, you talk to someone who runs for Brooks or North Face. Okay, well, who do you know? Like, obviously, strike up a bit of a dialogue first, invite them on your podcast, say some nice things about them, compliment them a bit, and then ask for the contact.
Relax. Make them relax, Luke. That's all. We just draw them in.
Exactly. You're far too effective. I can see you've done it very well this episode, and it's frighteningly good.
You've slowly sunk down the sofa because also you've done a session, so now you must be thinking, oh, it must be cookie and milk time soon.
Yeah.
One last question before we jump on the quick five that I was just thinking when you were telling me about your mindset of the New Delhi race and your mindset now, because anybody out here who's touching into their ultra running journey or has done ultras, 99% of it is the mental battle that goes on in your head, of your mind going, this is really, really hard. This is so hard. I can't do this. I can't do this. And it's your self-belief and building that strength. And a lot of that is done in training. But a lot of it also can only happen when people, you sort of say, you've got to do the race and you'll see what you like. Your mental strength must be now. Do you still have that dialogue in races of like, oh, I would actually quite like to be at home just having a cup of tea now? But or are you just so grateful that you're there at races running that the David Roach gratitude is there throughout all the races? Have you found that sort of mindset shift that you just think every race is just such a bonus in life?
I think to begin with these ultra races, I'd never done them before, so the novelty was there. I was doing really well, and there was just this enormous gratitude and appreciation. I was in these beautiful places. It was out of my ordinary, and it was so easy. I was very lucky, and with my background, and it's still to this day, I will very much be like, would you rather be on chemotherapy or in pain at hour 7? Would you, rather be running 100K, even though it's difficult, or would you rather be dead? Because that's the situation my brother's in, and so like when you put it in those perspectives, I think, it really does put it into perspective. And at the beginning, that was, the excitement was so easy just to, and also, the races weren't of such a high standard, and it's got tougher. I'm now doing, more difficult races where, okay, I'm not winning necessarily, or it's really competitive. So you're not just cruising to a great time. And so the development in the mindset I realized over perhaps the last maybe even just a couple of months is that actually for me, races almost by necessity have to become a time of really nurturing that gratitude, really developing it in yourself. It's making it very consciously happen, because I realized it was slipping away, but not necessarily slipping away, but it wasn't just necessarily there.
Wasn't at the forefront. It was just
there.
Yeah,
precisely.
Yeah.
And so now it's something on race day, I'm really actually to get through that, you have to really celebrate being alive. You have to be so conscious of it, and you have to remind yourself. And I think the things I think are more or less the same, but the intentionality, I have to work harder at it, because I'm now 6 years down the line and I've done more races and it's more difficult, and if you're not in first place, you don't get that mental boost, which is, absolutely, it's a real thing. So, it's harder when you're all fighting in fifth or 10th or 50th.
Or the cut-offs. And I think it's and it's something that I have to remind myself daily. Eddie, you get to do this.
Well, you entered it. You paid the money.
You paid the money. And you might not be enjoying it, because I think as well people get mistaken that because it's not enjoyable at the time, then it's not the right thing to be doing. But often things in life are not enjoyable at the time, but it's the overcoming of the challenges that give you the enjoyment afterwards, give you the satisfaction.
I think it's like, as you do more races, also the ignorance isn't bliss. And yeah, when you can overcome the challenges, you get away with it the first few. It's a novelty, but after a few of them, they take the toll. If people want to, you mentioned Kent Mountain Festival, A Life in Tandem. Remind us, Luke, what was the date? So
the 24th of November. So Sunday, the 24th of November,
2 p.m.
2:15. Yeah. And if you want more details, you could follow me at Luke G. Shaw on Instagram. And you can.
G. Shaw. I like it. At Luke G. Shaw.
Should we do the quick five?
This is where the truth is going to come out.
Spicy.
Steamy and spicy.
What's your favourite brew, tea or coffee?
Both. Am I allowed to say both?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're happy to share any caffeinated beverage as long as it's caffeinated.
No, I'm just both. I love them both.
Which one first in the morning?
Tea.
Coffee pot. Tea, yeah.
And for your coffee, are you an Americano, a latte, a flat white, a cortado?
I'm a flat white man, and it was one of my dreams to do great latte art. And so after I finished my cycle ride, I worked in a coffee shop in London. And I spent a few months there, and I
you can do
always
the
wanted
leaf.
to do.
You can do the
I can
leaf.
do the leaf,
the love heart.
My swans are a bit hit and miss, but
tricky.
There have been some good
the
ones.
neck is tricky on the swan, isn't it?
They end up looking like rattlesnakes, most of them, but
terrifying. I just do a blob.
It's classic.
And then
have you ever done a flat white? I've never made a flat white in my life.
Yeah, because I have a little steamer for the milk, and then
I see. Okay, you need your form for this, Luke. I'm not too sure if you're going to have this deeds. Can you find out what your last purchase on Amazon was?
I bought some a physio tape for my ankle. It's some I don't know what's called, elastoplast. Some adhesive tape, because basically I've got a right ankle that I can sprain all the time, and my French physios gave me some of this tape, which is better than just normal physio.
Yeah.
It's called,
Did it begin with L? It's something.
Someone mentioned this physio tip. Was it Max King?
All the Americans are going to be. David will be shouting when he's listening to this when I prod him to listen to it, because he loves taping up his ankles, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Lucy tapes up her ankles. All the best ultra runners tape up their ankles.
I've got a good one, Eddie. I've got a Tony's Chocolate Christmas Advent Calendar.
On Amazon, you bought that. You.
This for Esme. Don't come at me.
This is quite terrifying, mine. The kids don't listen to this. I bought the kids for a Christmas present a leaf blower.
is this like young child labour? Is that the idea?
Oh yes, I'm all for the child labour. We have Luke, we've just moved and we're surrounded by trees and there's leaves everywhere and they're all over the garden. So playing football, it's like dog poo or leaf. And so they were like, and when we go to school, we always see the guys with the leaf blowers out on the side and they're like, Mum, this is it. So I thought,
be careful what you wish for.
This could go either way. So the leaf blower, and alongside that is a wheelbarrow. So we've got both. And I knew the minute I ordered it, I thought, shall I just buy 3 of these? Because it is going to cause such arguments about who's doing the blowing and who's doing the picking up. But I thought, no, that's part of life. That's part of life.
I would not be happy with those. I would not be happy with those presents. I remember I used to go to school with the kids.
You would love a leaf blower.
A wheelbarrow. He was
They'll just be sucking up each other's willies and stuff like that. They wouldn't be blowing any leaves.
What did he get for Christmas? He was a calf. His dad bought him a calf for Christmas. This son of a farmer.
Car?
He lived on a farm.
Oh, sensational.
Calf, not a calf.
That's quite cool. I'd be into that.
I'd be into that.
Right, we're going to turn back time. Do you remember the posters that were on your bedroom wall as a teenager?
I didn't really have posters on my wall. So as you know, I orienteered. I wasn't a cool teenager. But later I put maps on them and I love maps. Maps of like places I've been and particularly like on cycle trips. So like Morocco, Egypt, Spain. And I like write on the route and then I plastered those over my wall. So maps are my favorite sort of poster because I'm a sad orienteer at heart.
No, I love that. Kind of just prompts memories too. I like that. Do you miss? Well, actually, you can kind of indulge us though. But yeah, you spent some time out in Russia. But is any cuisine you particularly miss?
Not particularly Russia, but no offense, guys, but
the Russians they do listen, obviously, because they listen to everything.
They do take offense, don't they? Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
It's all right. I've got my leaf blower. I can pretty much.
Yeah. Putin will be quite scared of that, I'm sure. Yeah. You've nukes. I have a leaf blower
from Amazon, $7.99.
It'll suck up your rocket.
Come right down ground level.
Sorry. What are we doing about Russian cuisine? No, you don't like Russian cuisine. But
would I miss falafel and hummus? They would, and just like great salads. I'm just in love with green salads. So yeah, falafel, hummus.
You just never get full. That's the problem. You just keep going until you're like, if I have any more, I love it.
You've been gifted free concert tickets. Who are you going to go and see? Taylor Swift, Metallica, Coldplay, Oasis. I saw Robbie Williams is touring again. Or somebody else?
Gosh, if I get the choice, I would probably go for Muse. I've never seen them, but they were one of my favorite bands growing up, and particularly like one of John's favorite bands. So he did see them. So I think Muse would be like the obvious go-to answer. But
they're good songs for running to too, aren't they?
Yeah. They make a lot of noise for. Is it like 2 or 3 guys? They're like a noisy band for not many people.
Particularly when you just put the sound up to 10, right? And it's just...
Oh yeah, and then you get the alert going, turn the volume down, and you're like, no, baby, I'm turning it up.
No way.
I'm just warming up.
Exactly. It's like this is a turbo session, and I'm going.
I don't want any thoughts.
Test.
There cannot be any thoughts. I need this max volume.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. Every week we share the podcast over on Instagram, Luke, and you get to choose the music for our Instagram story. What's it going to be?
So I would love it to be Hamilton. I'm not throwing away my shot.
Oh my God. Gary's dying inside and Eddie.
I love it. Honestly, that over-delivered big time, Hamilton. I went reluctantly and had the time of my life.
Oh, you've made me the happiest person. And also my eldest son, who I'm heavily pushing into musical theatre, he sang that. He was on stage with a group of women and he sang that. And oh my God, I was like, you don't realise how cool you are, but you are the coolest guy in this theatre. Luke, we cannot tell you. We have used up so much of your time. Please send us a bill. What an absolute joy it's been to meet you today, to hear just an absolute tiny bit of your story. I will never forget you, and I will think about you many, many times, I'm sure, in the future when I'm running. And I'd also like to give a big shout out. As you were telling your story, I kept thinking about your mum and dad, and being a mum myself, I was thinking, and I'm sure you would agree, the heaviest of kudos to them for them going, what a time they must have had, but also to pick you up and put you back out into the world and go, no, Luke, come on. That run with your dad was like, gosh, that was just what a moment that must have been, and how brave they must be, and what parenting, incredible parenting to support you on that journey as well. And I cannot wait to see the film and see the journey, but I cannot wait to see as well what the future holds for you in the running world, but also just in this world that you've created as well, of giving people inspiration and hope, maybe not just from suffering from cancer, but those around cancer as well. So thank you so much for giving up your time and sharing just a little bit of your journey with us today.
I mean, thank you so much for such an amazing chat. And I think, huge credit to both of you, because this has been such a fun conversation. Hopefully it's fun to listen to. And I just want to say that my mum has been just the absolute star. I didn't really talk about her, but
she was there.
I
could feel her there. Yeah,
she's massively there, and the way she has dealt with the last 6 years is nothing short of sensational, and she is just the most amazing, strong woman. And what she's done with her life is quite remarkable. So
future podcast guest, we'll check she's a Patreon, and then we'll invite her on. Good luck at the. Will you be at the Mountain Festival? Will you be there for people to meet and greet?
Yeah. So we're going to be doing a Q&A after the film as well. So that should be a lot of fun.
No offense, Luke, but we're kind of a big deal in the running world. So you are going to be, you might need security now once this goes out, and people will say, I heard you on the podcast and you sign my whatever. You're just going to have to go with it. There have been tattoos, Luke. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah. Tattoos. Wow.
One that we know about.
I want a tattoo of a leaf blower, I think, to sort of remind me.
$7.99. I'll send you the link after this.
Exactly. Yeah. Thanks, Jeff.
Good luck with Chiang Mai. Wow, 7th of December, not long now. So I'll be keeping my eyes peeled. And you're always welcome back, Luke. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, I'll be spamming you. Yeah. Cheers. Thank you so much for the chat. It's been great.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hands up now if you just listened to that, if you're booking a ticket to the Kendall Mountain Festival to go and give Luke a hug and watch this movie.
I could go.
Oh, man alive.
One thing I thought is the takeaway, if there's been moments where I've not done something because I'm scared, maybe a parachute jump or a helicopter ride, I didn't do once, and other things, I think, life's can be short for some people. Life is really precious. If there's something out there you're thinking, I'm putting that off to next year, I think just embrace it. Go for it.
Also, when he was talking to you, weren't you thinking, all the time I was thinking, I can't believe we get to do this as a job, that you're telling us this. We've got a little, invited into your sitting room, and you're sitting there and you're sharing this journey with us and giving us not just the story, but such power and the words. And I think there's something about hearing it live like that. You could feel him reliving those moments. He told a great story. So we can't wait to see the film, and we can't wait to follow your journey, Luke, and where it goes next.
Thanks, Phoenix Light, for sponsoring our Strava Club and Tales from the Trails section. And don't forget, patrons can enjoy 10% off over at www.phoenixlight.co.uk. What was the Phoenix? Oh, did you ask, actually? How would they pronounce it to the group?
I think we all said Phoenix.
Was there some serious Phoenix action going on?
I can't even tell you how many. Did you see that little reel that was made of us running across the moor?
Oh, which one at night time?
Oh, the nighttime one. So funny because we were chatting away, and then someone was like, what is that noise? What is that noise?
For you guys, it was quite spontaneous because quite a lot of that content was staged.
It was nothing staged at all. We didn't even know that was what it would look like. We could just hear a drone, and the only thing we were all thinking was that must mean that within half a mile, was it? Well,
civilization.
How far, that there's a road, and that means that's the end of this boggy section. But I would say, I counted. I think it was 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 girls were the Phoenix Head torch. Everybody said, once you go Phoenix, You don't go back.
It's no going back.
Super simple, super comfortable, great light. And Robin and I came up with a great tandem way of wearing the head torch. She was at the front on that section. I was just behind her. But if you wanted to chat, you've got to be quite close to the person because so much as a Pennine Way is on bog and it's a single track path. To have a conversation, you've got to be right up behind, right in the butt cheeks of the other person. But then you can't see where your feet are going. And you can't do that with a head torch on because you need that little pool of light. So she put her head torch on medium and
Skills.
I went heavy light lumen, and so I was providing light to her, also lighting my bit. It was a great tandem.
Also, you know if somebody didn't want to chat too because of the head torch etiquette.
I had quite love Robbie got Eddie. We've had enough of you that day as well.
Number one on the it's not Strava charts, it's just what the wheel selected. Mel Sykes.
Yes, only one.
Yeah, one of your
Yorkshire
Pennine
Mel.
Way buddies, and we pitched tents near each other, Lakeland 100. Some big numbers, Mel. My goodness me. Is she doing the full spine?
She's doing this full one. She's there. She's strong.
2 months.
Strong girl. Strong.
Yeah, she's a strong one. 87.5 miles for the week with the longest run, 38.3. Was every day for you guys 30 plus miles?
We did 39, 38.3, and then 26, I think.
Okay. Still massive. But yeah, 12,723 feet for Mel. Jamie Allen, quality week. Long run, workout, and a healthy amount of vert too. I wonder what's coming up. 81.4 miles for the week with the longest run of 18.7. 6,964 feet of vert.
Probably just an easy week for Jamie.
Rex miles. Last but not least, Darren Greasley. A bit of hard graft after his holiday. And Darren might be doing the spine too because, there's definitely some Pennine Way recce's on his Strava. But this week was 56.8 miles, longest run of 15.5 and 5,850 feet of vert. Heavy flex. I'm going to give you ladies a heavy. It's like I'm the Hollywood handshake. It's quite embarrassing.
Oh, it is a bit, but also the girls will love it.
But yeah, all you women cushioning it, and just having a blast on the Pennine Way. I found it truly inspiring. All just having a great time, sharing the miles with mates. I'm tease you, but I loved all the social media updates. And anybody else, bloody hell, we're juggling, we're spinning plates, just getting those training miles in. We salute you. Kudos to all our Strava Club members. And if you'd like to be in with a chance of a random shout out, then pop over to Strava, search for Tea and Trails and join our Strava Club. Tales from the Trails.
It's me this week, guys. Oh, yeah, you guys are so lucky. You're going to get the first hand, roll up your sleeves, but pop the kettle on.
All the dirty deets.
All the dirty deets. What goes on the penis way stays on the penis way, Gary. But you can have the highlighted version. So I can't take any credit for this trip because I am merely an invited passenger. I initially said, yeah, I'm all on board. And then I backed off the mic psych because I just thought we'd only just moved into a house. I thought, it's too much to then drive down, too much to get away. But as life has got more complicated, I have always really, before the spine and the Northern Traverse, I've had 3 or 4 days recce on the course. And those big miles have always given me lots of confidence. It's such a good way to kit check, to work out all the little bits that blister and chaff, to work out your management, your fueling, just to feel the feels of those long days. Because even though it was super easy, lovely pace, there was never like any there was a couple of moments when I was like, come on now, let's just see what we got here, team. But that's very realistic to the sort of pace that you're going to be running at.
Can I ask a bit of deets? What is that? I always like my long runs to, as much as possible, replicate the event. How does the Pennine Way stack up against the Winter 200 route?
Well, obviously the terrain is quite different because there's a lot of Pennine Way, which though it's runnable, the going is so terrible, the bogs and the flagstone, that you can't move as fast as you can. I mean, some of the conditions on the Winter 200 will be wet and flooded and boggy, but there will be a lot of running miles as well. And you're not carrying the weight of the spine pack as well, which makes a big difference. So I wasn't sure I could get down to the Winter 200 course to recce without more help than bags, travel. This was exactly the time that I wanted to do some big days. So, and also, to be honest, Gary, we've moved here. We moved in July, and I haven't seen or really talked to anybody of my own age. I haven't got any friends, basically. I've got no friends. I don't see anybody. I spend the week by myself and my dogs and live my life looking after my children and doing my job. So I had got to the point where I thought, I think Eddie needs to go out a little bit. I think she needs some time away. And I also wanted to come home. It was the first time that I was going to leave where we're living now, and it was going to be my home to come back to. Because at the moment, it doesn't really feel like home yet. It still feels like this is a very expensive Airbnb that we're living
I like that. It's quite symbolic. I never really thought of it from that point.
Yeah, it still doesn't feel like, where we were in Morzine, that was my patch. And I felt very comfortable there. Here, I'm still slightly on a heightened safety awareness course that I don't know anybody. And I still don't know where every path goes. And I haven't been through the seasons. And I understand that it's all part of the process and you can't rush it. Bryn does it every week now. He goes and he comes back. So he's come back to home, but I haven't done that yet. So it was the first time when I finished something like this that I was going to turn my wheels to come back to here and see it as home. And it did feel like it was so lovely coming back, because you can see the lights of our house over the field, and I could see the I could see the enormous television on.
From space.
From space. So that was lovely. So I wasn't going to go, but then I jumped back on the WhatsApp group and said, hey guys, asking for a friend. Can I jump? Oh God. And there was Robin and Lucy, who did a lot of the organisation, was so lovely. And were like, yeah, we'll. And so they did a lot of sorting taxis out, adding me into rooms. And then sadly...
Well, I don't know them all, but my little experience of the people I've met there...
Beauts.
Yes, lovely people.
Lovely people. So I jumped back in, thanks guys, and we decided so not all of us were doing the spine. I think 3 or 4 of us are not doing the spine, but most of them are either doing the Northern Challenger, or 6 or 7 of them were doing the spine. Laura's done the spine before. Hannah's obviously actually the queen, the king. I think she's probably the most successful spine racer that there is out there.
It was basically running royalty. If you were on the trails, somebody else,
when
and you bumped
Emma
into you
Stewart joined us on the second day, I did think, if people ran past me, I'm nobody, but if people ran past, and there was somebody up on the moors that ran past and double take, and the fact when we were sitting outside the co-op and there was like people filming and taking pictures, I ruined it because I sat in the middle of the road and was like, I'm too tired, I don't care if a car comes.
But imagine if you were in a coffee shop somewhere, I don't know, and Chandler, Joey, Rachel, everyone just rocked up. I know it's a completely different genre, but it'd be like, oh my goodness, mate, it's like, these are your idols, your heroes. And to see all you out on the Pennine Way, I just would have, if I was there. I remember once Sabrina Vijay was doing something, and Carol Morgan was doing a challenge once, and even Nikki Spinks. And I remember those moments, like literally 5 seconds of their life, but I still remember them, and it was like a real thrill. So yeah, if somebody bumped into you lot on the trails,
I think they'd hear us. I think that was the override. What the media team guy said was like, we didn't really need to know when you were coming because we heard the gaggle. And it was so funny because there'd be a long train of us, and then there would be something, probably Lucy's laugh, that's so dirty and loud, and then we'd all stop to go, what was so funny? What are you laughing at? Anyway, I'll go back to the beginning. So I had to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, Gary, to drive down, which was not ideal when you've got 60k to run. That 60k to run, not just by yourself, but you're meeting up with everybody.
Got to show up, yeah.
You've got to show up. One of the things was I did not want to be the back marker, the one that everyone was waiting for, the one that started being sick, the one that couldn't keep up. There is that slight, and even Lucy said, there's that slight nervous anticipation of like, we didn't really know each other. We all knew each other from social media. We've all raced against each other. But of course, in ultra races, you never actually spend more than a bit of huffing and puffing, and then they come and go and stuff. So that was nothing to be worried about, because it was just a treat from the moment that we got to Dufton. Very kindly, Damo had agreed to take a little bag for each of us to where we were where we were staying. That was brilliant. So we met up in Dufton, woke the whole of Dufton up. Lovely Hannah was like, guys, quiet. And off we went. And just like you, we were just blessed on that first day of a cloud inversion. So we went up the side of Crossfell, which, Gary, all of this I just kept going, it took us what? An hour and a bit to get up to the top. And I thought, I just remember this in like the slog of that during the spine. And yet we went up it going, chatting, didn't even really notice it, chatting, eating. So I was a bit worried about going back on the course, thinking, no, it didn't fill me with like, oh yeah, where do you want to run? Second half of the Pennine Way, get me on there. But actually it was lovely to run on it and go that bit off Crossfell down into Greg's Hut, which I honestly thought was about 2 hours, and it took us about 15 minutes, and I was like, no,
I love that.
no, but it was the most glorious day, and it is really nice, though I mean, I don't think it's ever 99%, it won't be like that in January, but it was really nice for like Robin, who's not seen it before, to get the bearings, because it's really tricky up there, the navigation. And so I just shared all my tips that James had given me, which I think he'd got from Matt Neal. I felt like I was handing down the spine, like, put your back to this, it's a right hand turn, this, a left hand turn. So, it was amazing up there. The conditions, it was pretty dry as well. And then we jogged on down. Worst bit, I reckon, of the whole course is the bit after Greg's Hut. You jog down onto the road and you cut into these crappy fields that are on a horrible angle. So right now there was me, Ali, Bailey, Laura, Sarah Perry, Hannah Rickman, Robin Cassidy, Helen and Lucy. We were all, and then we were meeting Mel, Sam and Kirsty at Alston, because they were much more sensible and went for a 12 o'clock start rather than a 7 a.m. start. And this was the theme of the 3 days, was that it was maybe like 4 miles. And so we'd done about, I don't know, 12, 13 miles, and then it's 15 miles, and then it was 4 miles into Alston. And this was the only time that the train of fun would go a little bit quiet when calories went, and we started playing what are you going to buy at the Co-op? What are you going to buy at the Co-op? What do you feel like? Mainly Coke. There was a lot of cheese sandwiches. And so that was the only time. It was like 20, 30 minutes before it would go just a little bit quiet. Sarah Perry would move to the front and go, come on, guys, enough of this. Let's get it on. Let's get to the food. We'd get the calories in and the noise would slowly come back up. Both times the Co-op shop, Gary, the guy said, do I want a bag? When I bought some food, and I'd be like, yep, I'm not ashamed. I'll fill that bag up. So we met at Alston, had a sensational, Damo was there again. I think he was waiting to be invited. He was like, guys, girls. And he set up all his little jet bowls, every jet bowl he owned, I think, made us all cups of tea. Robin had made cake. It was, oh my God, I just got
Robin's
hold of that
got some cake skills. I was with Robin once and she had a cake for somebody.
She just brought it out. And then not only that, she was like, that's the vegan one. That's the non-vegan one.
My goodness.
Robin, no. Do not be any nicer. Stop it with your sensational hair, your incredible plaiting skills, and now your cake making skills.
Podium finishes.
Podium finisher. She'd cut the cake, but it had all sort of crumbled by the time I got to the cake. So I just scooped it with my hand, Gary. I just looked around and I just hoovered that cake on. Amazing. Cheese sandwich. I had a cheese sandwich, and as we were leaving, then Hannah said to me, do you want some mango slices? And I was like, I'm taking anything from Hannah. I'll take anything. Well, you snot, you dribble, I'll take it all if I can be a little bit like you. Mango slices and a cheese sandwich, incredible. Mixed with Robin's cake.
I'm not so sure about this.
Off we went to Greenhead, and the level of chat and laughter was at an all-time high. And actually, this bit is rubbish in the spine, the bit from Alston to Greenhead. It's fields, it's tricky navigation, but we had the most amazing day. So we didn't really need to concentrate on the navigation because we could see across all the fields. It was pretty dry underfoot. And though we'd never met each other, we all knew, well, people had met, but we didn't know each other. We knew enough about each other that you could ask questions. You would just start off a conversation and learn more about the people. And then you'd hear another conversation going on and you'd be like, dip into that one. What's going on? I was not ashamed to go, so who said that? Who was that? Or you'd hear...
the goss would have been 11 out of 10.
It was incredible. So the first day, I hate it when people say it, but the miles did fly by because we just having a great time. In fact, we had such a good time. We were pretty tired by heading into Greenhead that I had a moment. We were moving, but there was no faffing. Like if you went for a pee or you stopped to get out something out of your bag, people were relentless, and the line would continue, and you had to work to get.
Oh, I don't like that.
We called it a bit of fartlek, and you learned not to. You didn't want to be at the back. If you were at the back over the stiles or you got dropped, it would take 5-10 minutes to work a little bit to just get back.
My bladder, it works against me. I'm ruined.
Yeah, Lucy was brilliant. I think she did a couple of poos and was able to get back on the line. And so there was only one point then on the way. There's a bit of more as you drop down into Greenhead, and everyone had the head torches on. I'd been doing something, hadn't got my head torch on, and they all started running off. And I was like, excuse me, I haven't got my head torch on yet. Oh yeah, everybody. There was a lot of laughing over that. But we were chatting so much, we went past Greenhead and suddenly started heading up towards Hadrian's Wall. Me and Hannah, the key navigators, I would say, of the trip. It would be Eddie, Hannah. Hannah knows. Hannah's PTSD on that course is the real deal, and she knows it. And she'd be like, "Oh yeah, no, I was crying on this bit, so that's definitely not the right path. I always get this path wrong." But we actually went past Greenhead and started up towards Hadrian's Wall. So we ran an extra 2K on the first day, Gary. People could have been sad, but we weren't. We were just happy. And if you're ever doing a spine recce, the Greenhead Hotel is really reasonable. And it's incredible. And we walked in, bog monsters, and they were like, "Don't worry, we're used to it. Don't worry about it. Here's some newspaper. Just put the newspaper down to take your boots off." A lovely hotel. Best thing about the whole trip. Out on the landing, they have a fridge with milk jugs in, and just like, help yourself. All the tea you can drink. And they don't just have like 2 tea bags, the proper tea bags in a jar in your bedroom.
Attention to detail.
Attention to detail. Lovely dinner. I was the only one hobbling down the stairs on the first day, Gary. And I'd like to say it was age-related, but Kirsty is a few years older than me, and she skipped down the stairs, and I thought, oh no. And when I needed to go for a wee halfway through dinner, I thought everyone's going to see how stiff my legs are.
So were you a bit worried about day 2? You're like, oh my goodness.
No, I just get really stiff. I get stiff from a half-hour run. So we had to go down some steps to go to the loo. When I came back up the steps, Hannah whispered to me, "Much better on the way back up the steps, Eddie, than on the way back." I just get stiff legs. I mean, getting out the car after school run, I'm like, just takes me a little while to get going. So no, I wasn't worried about the second day. I felt pretty good. Me, Mel, Lucy, and Robin and I, we shared a double bed. We are pretty sure Robin and I could move in together, pretty happy. Get into bed, pull the duvet over. Neither of us moved for the next 8 hours. Simple bed folk, truly comfortable. Mel got up, minute she got up, switched the kettle on. I thought, actually, we could probably all live here. We'd be very happy roommates. Setting off for the second day. So second day, Greenhead to Burness. I think this is a bigger day than the first day. It certainly felt a lot longer. We were joined by true running royalty, not just, you won some good races, you've had some good podium places, you're a sponsored athlete. Moss and Sky turned up for the next 18 miles. Yeah. The most adorable collie, Emma Stewart's dogs, who she had tied around her waist.
I saw it.
Moss, her older dog, had the most delicious head, and everybody wanted cuddles. And then she was like, "You guys have just, you don't know what he's rolled in, but you guys now, all over your gloves have got." And they kept pulling her down. She'd put on like some sort of really old trainers. They pulled her down on her bum down most of the hills, which entertained us all. She was only 6 days back off course record 100-miler, trotting around like a park run.
So she's down for the winter spine. I didn't know.
No, she's doing the winter 200. She's doing the winter 200. Yeah, she looked fresh. She was great. So everybody was great to meet her in person, hear all about her. A lot of, we went through some cows, went through some dogs. Had a couple of vets with us, and their cow and dog and horse etiquette was greatly appreciated. So this next section is a bit rubbish. Greenhead to Burness. There's nothing to really sort of, you've got Hadrian's Wall, which always seems a bit endless, lots of ups and downs, but we were fueled by this. They put on breakfast early for us, and we had the most enormous fried breakfast. That sort of saw us over Hadrian's Wall, and then you take the left over the stile and head towards Bellingham. And we knew at Bellingham, the highlight of the trip, the second co-op. And so again, it went a little bit quiet before we got to Bellingham, and then the co-op trip, which I think there's a lot of photos.
Is that where we all kind of crashed out on the floor just outside?
So we've done quite a lot there. That's a 23-mile section there. So past lunchtime, missed a meal. And we knew that was the last stop then. And then we were going to get to Burness, but there's nothing in Burness. And then there was nothing till the end. So we were buying up all the candy and the Coke and the crisps. And it was so interesting seeing what everybody ate. All the different, nobody's eating the same thing, which goes to show, doesn't it? Nobody's eating the same thing. No one's eating at the same time. Everybody's eating just such random stuff people would pull out of their packs. But every time someone pulled out something even more random, everyone would go like, yeah, I'll have a bit of that. I thought I'd bought a cheese sandwich for the next day, and I thought I'll shove it in my backpack, and then tomorrow at Hut 1 or Hut 2, I'll eat it. And then the next day I realised it was an egg sandwich, Gary. So
I'd give it a go.
Yeah, I ate it. It's just the mess of it really was a bit tricky to eat. Anyway, next section, my least favourite section. I hated it on the spine. I did not really... Obviously, I enjoyed it because I was with mates. We were having a great time, but it's just so mindless. There's nothing. There's just more. You feel like you're never getting anywhere. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to tick off. There's no joy. Finding joy on that section is very hard. But we bought our own joy, Gary. We bought our own joy, and I bought it in the way of musical theatre by introducing everybody to the Eddie Jukebox.
I need to ask everybody individually.
Yeah, some people were fans. Some people would say that was joy. Some people were shocked at the volume that I could produce on the trail. And some people put on their AirPods, Gary, and said, it's not for me. Eddie, you're not for me. And that's okay. I can take that. We got to a level of hysteria that everyone will recognise of, like, we're pretty tired. We're nearly on 80 miles in 2 days. We still got 8 miles to go. What are we going to do? The last bit into Burness as well is on this forest track and again, there's nothing. It's just forest track. You've got to run it, Gary. You've got to run it. And so I put on some Spotify tunes, quite nervous about my tune choice. Like, what do you choose? You're with a lot of high profile people. They could put you under a bus at any point if...
I'm surprised any of you had headphones.
No, we didn't have headphones. I put it on the speaker.
Oh, okay.
So put it on the speaker. And that was one thing we said, if we did it again, we would take a little Bluetooth speaker for moments like that. We put it on because one of the things about this trip as well was like making those sort of memories of the of those last 5-6 miles into Burness, listening to the singing along, listening to Mel in a Yorkshire accent singing Busted. It was such that tiredness you get when you've had 2 mega days on the trail, but 2 such happy days that even though those girls they're going to be very, very low when they're on that track. It is a low point. You're going to Burness, but really you've got 30 minutes at Burness and they're going to chuck you out, and then you've got to get yourself over the Cheviot to finish. But we made some like great memories on that track and singing along, and Sarah Perry moving to the front, last 4 miles to go. Let's put the hammer down and get into Burness, which still seemed endless, even though I didn't have 220 miles in my legs. It still seemed a long way. Ollie and his wife very kindly opened up. They run a B&B called Forest View in Burness, but I think it might be one of the only places to stay, and it's closed for the winter. But their friend Lucy stayed there before, and they very kindly opened up the whole place for us, Gary, to go and stay. It's where you go into in the spine. It's the spine checkpoint. And I was like, no, guys, that's not it. That's not it. It's someone's house I went into. I'm like, no idea, it's a hotel. I was like, I just thought it was someone's sitting room. It's really nice. So cozy. We walked in and he just had teapots out. There's a theme of this trip.
He knows.
He just had teapots out and he literally was like pouring the tea. Now, a couple of things. Big fan. He said, Eddie came up, massive hug, love the podcast. All quiet. Ollie, just a quick question. Are you a patron? Silence.
Oh.
But all is forgiven. And then he took our shoes. He didn't take our shoes off. He took our shoes off and off they went to a drying room. So the next morning when we put them on, a little crispy, but dry. And they cooked us homemade pies, like a potato dauphinoise. We had brownie. We had ice cream, all vegan. We had lentil soup. And this was probably my only low point, apart from the taxi drive home, where everybody sort of looked up the table and started laughing at me. And I think I'd gone a bit green. And I'd gone to that point where, like, you've been running all day. I'd eaten really well all day, but then we'd had a shower, and then there was about sort of an hour and I hadn't eaten anything yet. And I got such low, that hypoglycemic, if I don't eat soon, I'm going to be sick, or I just need to sit and have a moment. Very unusual for Eddie to go quiet, generally. And they were laughing at me. Anyway, the soup, the pie, it restored me. Oh my God, we were tired. And we had a big day the next day. So that there's no, there was chat of like, what time should we have breakfast? So you got to get up. You got to get up and go. They must have got up so early. We had there were croissants, pain au chocolat. There was fried breakfast.
5-star. These two are legends.
These two were legends. Got my warm trainers on. I didn't want to get out of my lovely cozy bed. Packed it all up.
What's the hotel again? We've got to give them a big more of a shout out.
It's a B&B. It's called Forest View. The big shout out. So really, it's the only place to stay when they're open. Such a nice place. Then last big day over the Cheviots. This was good because the girls need to realise that you're not going to see anything for 200 and plus miles on the spine. Yeah. So let's not pretend. And we didn't see. When we came off the Cheviots, the cloud lifted, but for most of the day we were in Clag, and a little bit tricky this section with a lot of people because you have a long train. This is where the fartlek a couple of times came in. Long train on those flagstones and then stiles. So the top people who climb the stile first would start running. Then you'd be like 90 seconds behind to climb the stile and then have to get... And Sam, she had 2 broken ribs, Gary. She put you to shame. Do you remember the fuss you made about your ribs?
Yeah, I was crying
about my bruised rib. 2 broken ribs, and she was running along those slabs, and once I was behind her, and she's like, Eddie, I'm really sorry. I'm just going to be a bit careful because my ribs are broken. I was like, what?
Respect, Sam.
Respect, because those slabs are terrifying when you've got ribs that work.
I remember breathing and the hydration pack would hurt my ribs. So, oh, wow, Sam. And she did the full 3 days.
She did the full... did she join us in Alston? But I would still call that the full 80, 90 miles. So when we were on the flagstones, and if I'd have a bit of a water, bog or flagstone, I was like, she's got 2 broken ribs. You got nothing to worry about, girl. So I made a few errors in my nutrition choice of this day. I got a bit tired. I didn't pack the right things. So I was a little bit annoyed at myself. And my main source was my sandwich, which I didn't really enjoy. So I nailed the nutrition on the first 2 days. And the third day, I was a bit upset by myself. I was a little bit... loosey-goosey. It was good to come out, see the hut, see it all as it was, and relive not happy memories. I don't think that section it's just so bleak up there, Gary. There's nothing up there.
No.
But
did it make you think, well, I might go again?
I didn't have that. Everybody did ask that, and I didn't once think this makes me want to do it again. The only thing I thought was like it would be great to do it with all those women this year. Yeah. But the realism of it is that we wouldn't all be running together. True. Even if you shared some miles with people. No, people are like as they are racing each other, but also a big part of doing the spine is doing it by yourself and being out there by yourself. Whereas this 3 days was all about us being together, enjoy. Like when do you get to? We will probably. I know it's really sad because we were like, let's do this again, but
it might never happen again.
It might never happen again. So it was just. It felt like so incredible to. I'm so glad I went. And did it and got to spend some time with them. Made some new friends. Solidified. Is that the right word? Friendship, and just kind of seeing hearing how other women juggle everything, do everything, and know that you're not alone. It's a big part of it. I know a lot of the social media was like, look at this, incredible. These women are not like, they're all so competitive against each other, but it wasn't even like, I wasn't even in the write up. Like there wasn't anything about that. There was no talk about, I mean, Robin and I we talked a lot about treadmill sessions and how much we love doing them and what we were going to do and stuff like that. But there's no like, everything was just about like, oh, wow, you do that. Oh, wow, you do that. These women are like, their jobs, they have proper jobs. There's a cancer doctor, there's a vet, there's a paediatrician. It's incredible how much they all juggle and do and perform and yet are just the most wonderful.
I love how you can be like friends, but biggest competitors too.
Yeah, but the competition, there's no competition between. It's all about, it's hard to explain, but it's just all about being the best version of yourself. And then when you see someone else being the best version of yourself, there's just you go, get in there.
But I love my mates, but if I saw one of them coming up behind me on a race, I'd be like, fuck.
Oh, I would be like, oh, for fuck's sake, what are you doing here? But also I'd be like, they're having a good day. They're being a much better version of themselves than I'm being. So there is that as well. Anyway, running down into Kirkyetum, everyone was quite emotional, even though we'd not done the spine. I was just reliving that rundown and those feelings. And it feels a very strange place when it's not a finish line, that it's just a village and there's a bench and there's a hotel, and you think of the amazing heightened emotions or the finish there. You can't even explain it, of how it's feeling. And I'd be like, that's where I saw Bryn, and but it's gone. It's just a memory. It doesn't mean anything. It's gone. It's a moment in time that has gone, but it shapes our futures.
I always think that if I ever go back to Coniston, then it's just quite Coniston. When you think about the Lake 100 razzmatazz,
it's a little village green where I flashed my bum far too many times, and then that was it. It was all over. I took a few photos, hugs, sweaty hugs. Off we get back into our taxis, disappear, and it's done. It's over. The moment is over, but memories to last forever. I was so nervous about the 3-hour drive, but many of the girls had longer drives back home, and so I did, as a trail runner. This isn't my first time. I knew exactly what I needed to do, Gary, and that is to drive into the nearest service station and buy a Burger King, a Coke, 2 cups of tea, all the fluid. I went for a wee, and it was the colour of...
Oh, terrible admin, Eddie.
A tin mine pea, I call it. Colour of some sort of mining fluid. And I bought every vegetarian option they had in Burger King. I'm sorry, I would really let all the vegans down.
Oh, they do a good plant whopper. It's sensational.
I didn't have a plant whopper. I had a vegetarian burger. I needed the mayonnaise, Gary. I really wanted the moisture. And then I put on Take That's Greatest Hits and drove back up the M6, actually on a massive high. I was really worried about the drive, thinking I was going to be so tired, but so happy, full of love. Gosh, so full of love. Just stuff in my face. Just thinking of all the other girls, like all spidering off, driving over to all of it, back to normality.
Just imagine you driving up the M6 with Robbie,
shoving
Gary.
Robbie, not Gary. I'm not such a big fan of when. Yeah, there was a bit of never forget going on. So yeah. Oh, I mean, I hope I painted a picture of what you see on the social media. It was very much like what it was, but also it was just the normality of it was just like a group of buddies getting together, running miles. There was nothing, there was no egos, there was nothing. It was all just full of joy, love, so much laughter. I've not laughed so much. Silliness. What a treat. I'm so grateful to be invited. I'm so grateful to all. Big love to all the girls. And if you're thinking, I don't have time to do a little mini adventure, just do it. Just do it. Everything can wait, and it doesn't need to be anything mega. I won't tell you financial details of the trip, but I don't think it cost us over like 200 something. When you share rooms, you share the price of, it was not expensive. And so, but it was some memories that will last forever. And also I feel like when our paths cross again with all those girls now, we have something special. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to get out on the spine route at some point to share some tunes. I could take requests for the jukebox out on the trails.
Bluetooth speaker.
Get my speaker out, not just my phone.
I cut me boombox.
I get the boombox. Like the lady that hands the flapjacks out and invites everyone into house. I could become the musical entertainer on the Burness track.
Might irritate a few people though.
We just run on by, just drown it out. But what a few days. I felt so lucky, but oh my God, Gary, am I tired now? Am I paying the price for my biggest ever mileage week? Not my biggest vert week, but my biggest ever mileage week.
And time on feet week too.
No, well, to be honest,
spine,
Northern Traverse, obviously the mile, but my training week, the most miles. But, Hannah just had to go and piss on my bonfire by running 50 miles on the treadmill. So after the first stage, I've already run 100 miles this week. Also just amazed at you're so fresh. You're so fresh, you're so bouncy. I just want to be like you all and not be old and flabby. But there we go.
Stops for nobody.
What a weekend. One I'll never forget. And now I've got some lovely picture memories as well. So thanks, Will and Tom, the Spine Media team, who came out and captured our little journey and were very, very professional, Gary, in the way that they just would turn up and they'd be like, we don't want to intrude. We were always like, yeah, come on, come in. going, guys, come to the co-op. But they were taking lots of photos, not just it was meant to be for like the spine race for them to use during the race. But I think it almost became something else as well. And it became a sort of like...
Oh, I like that, yeah.
Yeah, it sort of became a like, look, wow, there is all these women running together having fun. Can you imagine? What a treat. And there's already talks, Gary, of another meetup, but we'll have to see.
The team over at 13 Valleys is supplying the prizes for our latest competition. This is a super generous and awesome prize, so you head over to Facebook and support it. So you and a friend could win a race place for either the 2, 5, 7 or 13 Valleys. You know, I keep banging on about this race and I enjoyed my 13 Valleys little mini recce at the weekend too. And if you love the trails and you love the mountains and September is looking free, then I would definitely enter this race. You both don't have to do the same race too. You could do the 2, your friend could do the 5 or the 7 or the 13. It is really up to you. And all you need to do is 1, like the pinned competition post, 2, share the pinned competition post. There is a bit of an imbalance between...
Oh, I know. Guys, come on, follow the rules.
And in the comments, pop a picture of you and your trail buddy who you would like to share the prize with. And yes, tag the mate too. We'll pick a winner at random on the 18th of November. So that is, you've only got a few days left with this competition. And thanks to everyone who's already taken part. These competitions, they are my absolute favourite. When people share pictures, kudos. And thanks to 13 Valleys for supporting our competition. What have you got coming up, Edwina?
What's coming up?
What's coming up?
I just sorting out the carnage of mum leaving the house. And I'm so tired yesterday, but I'm not an oncology doctor having to do a proper job. I am
Oh, you manage people, Eddie. I
manage people, but I can tell them, they can look in my eyes and go, I'm not a pediatrician. I'm not doing a proper job. So I take that with me going, you guys go back to save the world. Eddie's just going to reload Training Peaks and put a wash in. So just sorting out life admin. So I'm just going to recover. I haven't been running yet, but I will do some running and I'm going to get back onto it. I've got 4 weeks. 4 weeks today. I will be on my second day of the Winter 200. And next week we'll discuss a little bit about my feelings for that, because I'm not sure about my feelings for it, to be honest, Gary. And I need to get into them, because I don't want to stand on that start line without full confidence and full stoke for the event. And I need to find that. But as we always say after big things, and even though this wasn't a race, it was still 120 miles worth of running, no big decisions. Let's not make any big decisions.
Oh, there's going to be a bit of a come down after the few days.
There's a bit of a come down, there's a bit of a fatigue, and there's a bit of like, oh my God, can I do this? But we'll talk about that next week. So my plans this week, I'll just recover, eat all the food, tidy out the fridge, and hopefully by the end of the week, I will do a long run, but it will be a mini long run, maybe a session. That is becoming more and more doubtful. And I'm just going to ab blast it. Brutal Abs, what's it called?
Brutal Abs, Fitness Blender.
Fitness Blender, Brutal Abs. That's what I'm going to do. My athletes, they were all racing at the weekend. And so after this, I've got 6 calls to do of some sensational little running.
When you do a job that doesn't stop, like say if I worked I remember my time, say when I was a student at Sainsbury's, when I wasn't there, the shop somebody else put the whiskey on the shelves or served the customers.
That's it.
Well, your job, it all just stacks up.
That's my whole job, like both my jobs as a mum and as a running coach. Nobody else is doing those particular parts of my job. So when I come back to it, it's just a case, and other people will recognize this in different jobs. It's just stacked up, and but I've learned this as well from when you go away and you do mega things and you come back, you have got to breathe. Trish, your words, Trish, breathe and believe. The first couple of days, you've just got to let it go as well.
I don't like turning the inbox on though, when you just come back to normal.
I made a few errors doing plans yesterday, but my lovely athletes like, Eddie, you've put 2 gym sessions in. They're both exactly the same on the next 2 days. What are you doing? I'm like, I've moved it. I've moved that. No, can you just sort it out for me? Yeah, Eddie. But then it's the beauty of the job as well, is that I'm working with like-minded people, and hopefully people that yesterday on Zoom calls when they were like, Eddie, you're...
Focus.
Stay awake. Let's do this. Right. Far too much about Eddie on this podcast this week. Sorry. We will turn the tables next week, but easy miles with Rex. Is that what we got coming up?
Maybe. So Rex has already been out today. I've not had my run today. I'm going to do a run of my own. I'm not going to talk about actually what's coming up, but just easy miles, a few strength sessions. And I think with my heart rate variability being steady now for quite a while, I'm going to try a workout. Sad times, no away days planned, so local trails for me.
When does cross country start?
It has already started on the next one on the planner. 23rd of November, if I do it. I don't know if it clashes or anything. Although I'd love to go to the lakes. The positive is I gain 4 hours of journey time. So
how far are you from the lake? Is it 3 hours?
Depends on, well, no, it's probably about an hour.
Where are we going to meet next week?
Well, we could, I think if it goes past the Blencathra Centre, like I know that's not where the race starts, but we could park up the Blencathra Centre if it's...
I'm not parking at the Blencathra Centre because I'm staying in Kendal, so that's where we're starting. All right.
Kendal, what are you even asking me for?
You were like,
humouring me.
You were like, all right, okay, thanks, Eddie. No, we can start because I'll have then only a short drive. You've got to drive all the way back, so if it's easier to meet there, I'll do whatever is easiest. Suppose we should ask the big dog. We should ask the money.
Somewhere I can put the car in, preferably.
Oh my gosh, you're not touched on this at all. Did you take the new car to the Lake District?
People don't want to talk. I don't want to talk about me now.
Oh, you don't want to talk about it? I do. We'll talk about it when we meet you.
Thanks for tuning in, and thank you all so much for sticking with us to the bitter end. Please share this episode. Pop over to YouTube, like, subscribe. It helps us loads. That's how we grow and keep showing up week after week after week. And thanks to Precision Fuel and Hydration, Phoenix Light UK, X Miles, Beta Run, and Protein Rebel for sponsoring this week's show. Remember those new customer discount codes, T15 for Protein Rebel and T24 for Precision Fuel and Hydration. Thanks to our partners and patrons too. We couldn't do this without you and your ongoing support.
Let the trail rise up to meet you. The wind always be on your back. Be kind to your future self. Breathe and believe. Progress, not perfection. My name is Eddie Sutton.
And my name is Gary Thwaites.
And that was episode 96 of the Tea and Trails podcast.